United States of America and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation under God,
God, indivisible,
with liberty and
and justice for all.
We're moving these folks as they're coming into the adjoining room. So we'll continue to move on with our agenda. Item 1.03, approval of the agenda.
Motion moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Luke, seconded by Brian to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the agenda is approved. Item 1.04, receipt of a presentation from Nevada State Senator Pete Gokachia and Nevada State Assemblyman John Ellison. This is a non-action item. Senator Gokachia called me this morning, and his wife was in the emergency room down in Reno this morning, and they got things taken care of. And later this afternoon, he called and they were headed back towards Eureka. So he apologized for not being here this evening. He wanted to address the parent group and everyone up here in Elko. So he sent me a text, and I'll read the text that he has here. Ironically, this afternoon at about 3 o'clock, Assemblyman John Ellison called, and he had an emergency, and he too sent a text for me to read rather than being here in person. So we'll start off. Senator Gokachia, I would like to thank the superintendents for working with the governor's chief of staff to reach a resolution to the directives for school districts and recognizing that one size for all isn't acceptable. The decision to mask or vaccinate needs to be made by the parents and the students. If you are comfortable with masks, then wear a mask. The same with the vaccine. If you're comfortable with it, then get vaccinated. We cannot legislate or mandate good health. If we could, I would be 75 pounds lighter and Assemblyman Ellison would be 6 inches taller. So no matter how we approach this, in the end, it will be decisions made by the people of this state who will ultimately, to the point we have herd immunity and move past this virus, just like we have in past diseases. The main point I want to make is we need our communities making the call, not a bureaucracy. Elections have consequences, but so do the decisions we all make as individuals. Thank you, and God bless this state and this nation. All right. Thank you, Senator Gokachia. And all right, this is from Assemblyman John Ellison. To the Elko County School Board and Superintendent, I appreciate being able to address the board, staff, and parents. I know this hasn't come as an easy decision, but it was the correct one that should have been in place since the start. Each county in Nevada is different and doesn't fall under one size fits all category. The decision to wear a mask or not should have been left up to each individual parent. If you want to wear a mask, then you have the opinion and you have that option, and vice versa. with not wearing one. I'm not against anyone receiving the vaccine, but again, this is not a one size fits all issue. If you want the vaccine, you have plenty of opportunity to receive it. This is a personal health choice that should not be pushed upon others. I believe that parents are the best ones to decide what is the best choice for their own families, not any governmental entity. I don't believe the state should be stepping on personal choice of any parent. I do not support the changing of our school curriculum as well. History is taught so that we may learn from it, whether it was good or bad. It's part of history to learn from. If we take away our history, we're doomed to repeat it. Our history is what makes this nation what it is. We have learned, overcame, and adapted from it. We need to get back to teaching the kids math, civics, social studies, and American history. Thank you for your time on this matter. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact my office. Thank you again, Assemblyman John Ellison. Now, we'll move on with our agenda to item 1.05, input from the public. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any, and discussion of those comments. In the interest of privacy and due process, the public is requested to not raise personnel issues except in a legally noticed closed personnel session of the board. Comments are limited to 3 consecutive minutes. A speaker's time may not be reserved, divided, apportioned, or deferred. No action may be taken upon a matter raised under this item of the agenda until the matter itself has been included specifically on an agenda as an item upon which action will be taken. Again, this is a non-action item. Cassie, do we have?
They're coming.
Okay,
Jim, I've got the time.
you've got the time? Okay,
There's a few. There you go.
okay. One thing that I was going to ask the crowd, that would be that if someone has already said the thing that you want to say, just say ditto and we can move on. Look, we want to hear all of your comments. This is for sure a very significant evening with regards to what we're looking at as we prepare to start school here in a short 3 weeks plus. So without any particular order, if you come up, state your name and speak into the microphone, we'll proceed. Is it Iden Harp?
Might be an overflow.
Is it?
Can they hear us in the overflow room? Here it comes.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good.
I'm Aiden Harp, and I am going to be a junior in Spring Creek High School. I just have a couple things. So I don't like wearing masks to school, sir. I want to have just a normal high school life. I want to make memories of just, seeing people's faces and expressing themselves without having to see a mask on their face. I'm tired of not seeing smiles on people's faces when I want to. And I like to play baseball in high school. And every year I've played high school ball, I've gotten to just go out in the field and not have to worry about a mask. And last year I had to wear a mask and I couldn't play the game I wanted to play because I always ran out of breath. And And like whenever I want to learn or I want to be able to talk to my teachers, sometimes I don't understand what they're saying half the time. So I really want to be able to have just a regular high school years for all that's left.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Debbie Pavlik,
She's also an overflow.
she's coming in. Okay. Hi, Debbie.
Hello, hi. Hi, my name is Debbie Pavlik. I'm a graduate of Elko High School, and my children both attended and graduated from Elko. I want to thank all the board members for being here and dedicating your time and energy to the health and well-being of all our students and teachers. I am here today to stand for our precious children and our amazing teachers who are asking for free choice in an environment that is following, to me, fake science and pushing unjust mandates. Alex Mayer, President, Children's Health Defense and California Chapter Board Director, Children's Health Defense, CHD, has issued a sharply worded letter to 1,100 California school superintendents that use of unproven or unreliable PCR tests and experimental COVID-19 vaccines cannot be mandated, and any of these unproven medical technologies can only be offered to symptomatic patients by their own doctor. The letter urges abandonment of premature efforts by the California Department of Education and the Los Angeles Unified School District to mandate these tests and force vaccination on students and employees as a requirement to return to schools. The 19-page letter calls attention to laws that forbid any mandated vaccines or tests that are approved for emergency use would violate federal and state laws. Furthermore, use of these medical interventions requires informed consent. Here are some threatened litigations from the CHD. The CHD letter warns any establishment of such a requirement will expose public schools to legal liability. The letter goes on to say, we may have no recourse but to take legal action, noting that CHD has already initiated litigation against coerced PCR testing as a condition for in-person learning in New York City. Alex Mayer's letter also refers to protections under the Nuremberg Code that requires exercise of free choice, undue inducement of any element of force, fraud, deceit, duress, or other forms of constraint. The letter goes on to state the Centers of Disease Control concedes it is illegal and unethical to mandate PCR testing in schools under the emergency use authorization. Vaccines are not allowed to be mandatory. Flawed tests. Furthermore, according to the FDA, the widely used PCR test should never be used on healthy people, should only be used in a clinical setting and only in the presence of symptoms. I have heard a rumor that our school district has taken funds to start this program. Is this true?
Thank you. Your time's up.
Okay, you can't answer, so thank you.
Brown, Kate Brown. And Ginger Wiegman. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Kate, you're good. Yeah. And go ahead.
Okay. My name is Kate Brown. I am a mother of 2 young children that attend Sage Elementary School. I am very involved in the school as well. I am the PTA president and have been involved in that for quite a few years. I feel it is our job as mothers, as parents, to rear our own children. Biologically, us mamas bears feel that deep in our souls when our children are put in these pressuring situations. School is a place of learning, not a hospital. I, as a mother, will choose what is right and what is best for my child, not the governor and not the school system. You cannot make these viruses go away. They are here to stay, just as influenza is. Per the CDC, the emergency use authorization for the PCR test is no more because it cannot distinguish between the difference between COVID and influenza. So what tests are being forced in our school systems right now? If these tests can't distinguish between the two, kids and staff are being sent home to quarantine because they have a mild flu, but that's only for not vaccinated, correct? Also, per the CDC website, under consent in supporting employee decision-making, workplace-based testing should not be conducted without the employee-informed consent required disclosure, understanding, and free choice. CISLAC is trying to force our students, our staff, our volunteers with these weekly testings just to get this vaccination in. So how will we be discriminating testing this school year? On the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, disability, or age? And before you think that is outrageous, that is exactly what happened last school year. Kids were discriminated against by their age. 3rd grade and under magically didn't contract COVID, so they didn't have to wear a mask. 4th grade and up did. And what will happen as a repercussion to my children when I decide not to consent to random weekly testing for my 6 and 8-year-old? Will they miss recess? Will they not get to sit with their friends at lunch? Will they be quarantined to another classroom? These all sound ridiculous, don't they? And yet this is exactly what our society is doing right now, rewarding with lotteries and lollipops for following governor directives and punishing, not directly, but slowly taking privileges away. My 6-year-old was so excited last school year when she was a kindergartner to come back with that form she filled out at the very beginning with all of our family information because she got a lollipop. How is she going to feel when I don't consent to weekly testing for her and yet kids around her are getting lollipops? Why are we accepting this discrimination? When it comes to the outbreak, with these tests, just testing anyone for a flu system and testing multiple times a week, yes, we're going to test positive. Okay, we're a constitutional county. Let's start acting like it. Thank you.
Ginger Weigman. And Vernon Hatch will be on deck. Ginger Weigman, yes.
It's gotta be an overflow.
They should be able to hear me in there. So Ginger Weigman, there we go. Okay. And Vernon Hatch is on deck.
I'm on deck.
You're on deck.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Ginger Wegman. I did raise 3 children in this school. I am now a grandparent. And actually, she's going to the Spark School. And I am very disappointed in their decision to put masks on our children. But there was 2 decisions to make: depression, anxiety, sadness, or a mask. But we are our own community. We need to do what's right for our children. I implore you to go back into your hearts and do what's best for the children in the community. This governor is corrupt. We shouldn't follow a governor that is corrupt. I don't care how much money he's put on the table. It's up for you guys to stand for our community and our children. These are their lives and their future, and the effects of the mask are devastating. Within 20 minutes, the masks have moisture in them. They're contracting bacteria within 20 minutes. Unless a kid can afford to put a new mask on every 20 minutes, they're actually getting more infected. We expel 70% of our germs out of our breath. If you don't allow them to get rid of the germs, it's going back into their mask and our children will become weak and sick. Many children can adapt to the mask, many cannot. Within 3 to 4 minutes, the brain cells start to die without adequate amount of oxygen. So it's up to you. You guys are in a precious position. You're in charge of children. And unless you start looking at this community with seriousness of what's really happening and really take seriousness what's happening to our world and these corrupt, tyrannical governors that are around our country, unless you guys start seeing what's happening, they're going to keep taking more and more away from us. It doesn't matter what you decide to do. They're still going to take things away from you. So why don't we just stand today for our country? You've heard the story. You know about the mask. You know about the PCR test. Did you know there's a chemical component that's on the PCR test that's causing cancer? Yeah, there's a cancer agent sprayed on the top of it. No matter what, they're doing everything they can to make us sick. You guys have a huge responsibility, and I understand. We don't need the money. Our community can do without the governor. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Vernon Hatch. There we go. And Ricky is on deck.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak.
Fun draw.
I'm a new resident of Elko, and I'm very, very engaged in the alternative health community, have been so for 25 years. It's kind of interesting. The CDC cites 7 studies on their website in support of wearing masks to stop the spread of infection. If you look at those studies, you find that each one is inconclusive, needs more information, but that's what they're basing their mask wearing scenario on. I really appreciate the talk that the last speaker gave, even though she stole some of my thunder. Now, on the contrary, there are several studies that prove that mask wearing is highly contagious for a particular individual, for ruining basically their own immune system. There was a video by Del Bigtree with his 10-year-old child at 30 seconds. Now, he put a mask on his child and he inserted a rod which was connected to a CO2 meter. At 30 seconds, it was registering 10,000 parts per million. Now, OSHA says that toxic levels are at 5,000 parts per million. So what are we doing to our kids on long-term exposure, right? And the thing is, the machine couldn't read above 10,000. So we don't know how bad it is. But yes, they're rebreathing their own bodily waste. Their CO2 levels are causing oxygen deprivation, CO2 toxicity. The children are experiencing symptoms of lightheadedness, breathing difficulty. I see these people running out there with masks on. Are they insane? I mean, seriously. You've got psychological damage to the children. You've got immune system is being compromised, and you've got this excess CO2 that's creating acidity in the body. When the acidity then turns to cancer. I mean, it's just a precursor. So basically, that's what I want to talk about masks. Now, as far as the PCR test, yes, there are some dangerous things that are actually on those swabs. Not only that, sticking them way up your nose, you're damaging the brain. These people don't know what they're doing. That should not be a test. It was done in old Egypt to punish slaves. There are two online places where you can get some qualified information. And I hope people write this down. One is called vaccineprobe.org. I would highly recommend that you go there. The other one was children'shealthdefense.org, and that is Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s website. And it gives you the latest virus data over there.
Time. Thank you.
I'm done, huh?
Thank you.
Shucks.
Welcome to Elko. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Ricky Bundrock. I think probably in the other room. And Kathy Durham is on deck.
Good
Ricky?
evening. How are you guys? I'm Ricky Bundrock. I'm a graduate of Spring Creek High School. I'm a former employee of Elko County School District, a coach. I'm a mother of 6, 2 at Liberty Peak, 1 at Spring Creek Middle School, 3 at the high school out in Spring Creek. I'm very concerned with where this district is heading. I would like to request on behalf of many Elko County parents that my children and all those others that are unvaccinated only be in a classroom with unvaccinated children and unvaccinated teachers. I do not want my children in a classroom with vaccinated teachers. Ridiculous and appalling, huh? As much as that may sound, but guess what? That's what's being done to us. That's what's being done to my sons that have to be tested every Thursday just to go to Battle Mountain when all of our husbands work together at the mines. This is the most absurd and ridiculousness, and you as a board have got to put your foot down. State mandates or not, CISILAC or not, you guys have 2 choices to make. You can either continue following the mandates like we've been doing from the beginning, making committees, asking lawyers, asking doctors, or you can make a stand today now for our county and say no more. We're not doing this. We're going to take a stand for our county. We're going to get back to teaching our children the principles of what we should be doing as a district and get rid of all of this ridiculous mandates and back and forth BS crap that we're doing every other week.
Kathy Durham. Okay, there you are.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Durham. For the past 21 years, I've taught U.S. history and American government at West Wendover High School. I am both proud and humbled to say that I have twice been honored with the Elko District Stars Award, along with receiving the Gene Ford Democracy Award. And I was runner-up for the Nevada State Teacher of the Year in 2019. And I've always said, none of these awards would have been possible had I not been surrounded by other great educators. You see, success in the classroom doesn't happen on its own. It takes teamwork. It takes everyone doing their job, supporting each other in ways that will benefit the whole school. And I am blessed that at my school, this is the kind of team I'm a part of. And I'm equally as fortunate to work for a district that is so deeply committed to the quality professional development. It too has paid a large success in my success as a teacher. It is from this teacher's perspective that I feel both qualified and obligated to speak tonight. Last week, there was last board meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the district's curriculum, our test scores, our overall proficiency of our students. And I hear a lot of people talking about teachers and about what we are doing and what we aren't doing. But what I don't see or hear is many people actually speaking to us teachers. I know in the last meeting, it was suggested that a group of district personnel, board members, civic leaders, administrators, teachers get together to discuss these issues. And I am here to say that I humbly request that you would let me be a part of that group. And if not, I would like to request that at least maybe be given an opportunity to speak to the group and give a presentation. Because when I listen to your questions, I feel that I could answer many of them for you. This is the first reason I'm here. And I hope you'll take me up on that offer. Secondly, from the perspective of a history and government teacher, I am deeply troubled by what I have seen over the past year at these meetings. History teaches us the patterns, the red flags, the warning signs that tell us trouble lies ahead. And when you listen to these narratives of these meetings and you hear the tone which some of the messages are delivered, and you analyze the power structures in play and you witness the interaction among the participants, I'm deeply concerned. And I'm specifically about the narrative of critical race theory. We do not teach critical race theory. Elko County School District has the most sound standards as a social studies teacher that I've ever seen. And it starts first with teaching our kids to question everything. And that is what it takes to be a critical thinker. I do not teach your children what to think. I teach your children how to think, or at least I try. Now, because I don't have a lot of time to say this, I'm going to say this to the adults in the room. Stop the fighting. Notice I didn't say stop fighting. I said stop the fighting. I never want you to stop fighting for your kids and their rights to a quality education, their rights to be safe in school, or their access to school structures that meet their needs so they can excel in academics.
Time,
But
thank you,
stop
Kathy.
the fighting over these false narratives about how we as teachers are embracing a curriculum that seeks to divide, alienate our kids from one another and this country. It is no coincidence for years, parents across this country never tuned into, discussed, or even showed up at a board meeting. Now, all of a sudden, every school district is facing the same crisis, and it ain't COVID, it's CRT.
Kathy?
Yes, sir.
Your time's expired.
I drove
I
110
know.
miles.
Thank you for providing your presentation.
Thank
It'll
you.
be in the minutes.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Kathy. Hayden Schaefer. Hayden Schaefer. And Andrew Church will be on deck.
Going.
Good.
My name is Peyton Schaefer, and when I thought about doing this, I thought about just giving facts, doing that, but I've heard a lot of that. So I'm going to speak from the heart. My niece, she has hearing aids. She has trouble hearing, high frequency hearing loss. When you cover her face with a mask, she can't read lips. She can't learn. It enables her to do the very thing that schools are supposed to do. I have 2 stepkids, both of which play sports. One is on the varsity football team at Elko. Football is his life. He wants a scholarship. He wants to go to the NFL. Last year, that tore him apart. He didn't get to do the thing that he loved, and this made it so that it wasn't fun for him anymore. And he questions doing it. It was the thing that he loved most, and now he's questioning it. Why we are doing this to our kids is beyond me. We should not, we cannot. This is the youth of the nation, and we cannot be doing that to them. I know this is a very hard spot to be in, and I understand it, but we cannot be doing this to our youth. Not just masks. This is affecting every bit of their life. I hear kids that are 12 years old walking around talking about politics. That's not bad, but they need to be kids. They need to have a chance to grow and play and not worry about things adults should be worrying about. This is unacceptable, and we cannot be doing this. The majority of this county, I think, stands with us. We're seeing that here tonight. Take the stand. Do what's right. Thank you, guys.
Andrew Church. Andrew.
It is not easy for those of us in the mining and agricultural sectors to attend these board meetings in person, but I believe that I speak for some out there tonight when we say we appreciate the board's decision to assemble a committee of community stakeholders to be involved in helping shape a school reopening plan. There is far too much factionalism, rhetoric, and partisan politicking that has mired this district's ability to develop effective COVID mitigation measures. And it is my opinion that the only way forward is by developing policy that is reason-based, data-driven, and formulated with the contributions from local professionals and their expertise. I do not consider myself qualified enough to propose detailed instruction for our reopening plan. For that, we put trust in this board and its advisory committee. What I can provide is an outline as to what may constitute a well-developed and objective plan for reopening. Such a plan must be rooted in data, and we must establish and agree on the metrics by which our strategies and measures are hinged. This means agreeing on the local health authorities we trust and accepting the information they present to us. This also means deferring to the expertise of our local practitioners and professionals when we are at the limits of our own knowledge of a subject. We must also ensure that we have the tools in place to collect data, whether those tools be contact tracers, testing protocols, or other means. The plan strategies should be anchored in this data so that if a certain threshold is reached, we have pre-established measures that will go into effect. This way, we will not be reactive to problems as they arise, but instead we'll have safeguards ready and the means to implement them. This will also ensure that all members of the community know in advance what is in place and what may be expected. This will require us to define what is considered an incident, an outbreak, or what level of exposure requires distancing. This plan may also be contingent on other factors in the community, such as percentage of ICU beds occupied with COVID patients or hospital staffing shortages. Lastly, it will be incumbent on this community to make this system work, to agree to this plan and to be forthright about what they know. I can think of nothing more insidious than those who would conceal information and therefore potentially endanger others, all for the purpose of advancing an agenda. These are not prescriptions, but rather possibilities for a plan. Thank you for taking these points into consideration. And I end in saying that Governor Sisolak had his opportunity to try his approach. Let us show him how we can do it better. Thank you.
Thank you. April Crooks. April Crooks coming, okay.
My name is April Crooks. I'm a new member of the community. I was going to start off by telling you a joke, but there's 99.9% chance you won't get it. I was on the board of an HOA for 12 years in Vegas, a subdivision under a master. You can fight Sisolak. I have a different name for it, but that would be inappropriate. You can fight them. You can send the money back. We'll take care of it ourselves. Also, what I did is what you need to do is research your laws and statutes. Sisolak is violating our state constitution, our own laws and statutes that we already have on the books. Use that information against him. If it's already been discussed that the PCR test can't even differentiate from the flu to the COVID-19. So how do they test for a Delta variant or any other variant for that matter? Okay. There was a FOIA request from the FDA. The PCR test was developed without any isolated samples of COVID-19. Who's to say that it even exists? Money, like I said, the money, give it back. And another thing I'd like to hear from this board, instead of just one size fits all, yes, we have to follow the mandate. No, we don't have to follow the mandate. Religious exemptions, there's medical exemptions. Let's talk about take your vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, get out in the sun. And we need to get ahead of things and be proactive instead of saying, gee, let's just wait and see what Sisolak says. I like what Lander County did. They got ahead of the ball. This is what this county needs to do and our school district needs to do. And keep our kids out of your politics. Leave the kids alone. Thank you for letting me speak.
Julie Stevenson. And Brett Kelly is on deck.
Hi,
Hi,
I'm
Julie.
Julie Stevenson. I have been living in Elko for quite some time. 3 of my kids have gone all the way through the schools, 7 grandchildren. There's 3 teachers in the Elko County School District in my family directly. So this is a big issue. Each one of you is getting a packet. There's a lot of things that you said, say ditto. I got to ditto all the elegant people who were here before me. But there's a couple of people that didn't bring up certain issues. And some of them, I think, are some things that weigh real heavily on your minds. If you go to page 2 of the packet, you look at certain highlighted things. Big Pharma has been liability exempt from this. Why your government would do that, I have no idea. But you guys are not. I know you've been told that your liability becomes extreme should one of the kids get sick or one of the parents get sick. But if we're talking actual liability, if you look at this, when you're mandating and pushing vaccines, mandating and pushing the masks, mandating and pushing the PCR testing, which is actually of no value whatsoever, your liability for this is on the line, both personally and as a group. And that's legal. This is not something that someone has made up. What's at the beginning of the packet here is done by an attorney who is physically right now fighting over 50 some cases on this very subject. And most of them are to boards like you and city council and county commissioners, because they're pushing mandates, because the governor has pushed mandates. We don't have the ability to do that. All the information that is on those first 2 sheets can be verified. Here's all their sources. If you go on, you got a page in there about consent. There isn't a single person in this country who can give informed consent. The very next page tells you the Nuremberg consents. No one in this country can give a Nuremberg informed consent. All the highlighted parts are not fulfilled. As a nurse, when I used to vaccinate children, I had to give either the child, if they were old enough, or the parent, the information so they could give informed consent. If there were things missing in my information, they couldn't give it. All the things highlighted are missing. And I can't get it from the CDC, the FDA, the WHO. I can't get it from NIH. I can't get it from Fauci. If I can't get it from them, how am I supposed to give it to the parent of my child or my patient? You can't give it to them if you don't have it. They haven't done the test. They haven't done the research. The time hasn't been put in. Also,
Thank you. Your time's expired. Thank you. Brent Kelly.
Yes, ma'am. Yep, I'll take it. I wasn't sure she was offering it up. Thank you.
Tiffany Criddle is on deck. Brent Kelly. Hi, Brent.
Good evening. My name is Brent Kelly. Father of 2 in the Elko County School District. They go to Wells. And I'm just going to be kind of point blank tonight and blunt on the topic of vax and masks. I do not understand why we're still on this subject, why we continue to follow CDC guidelines and Fauci when CDC and Fauci have continuously contradicted themselves and as of late been delegitimized at every twist and turn, every single one. Doctors, physicians, scientists, hundreds, if not thousands, I'm sure, all over the world giving testimony against both subjects. There's a red line being drawn in the sand. And on one side is truth and fact, and on the other is tyranny and communism. It's time we pick a side. Where have our moral compasses gone? Where has our moral fiber as a country, as a county, as a people gone? It was made clear to me in the last meeting, sitting here listening to the things brought up and the PowerPoints presented, that most of this is monetarily driven. We have a godless commie governor in Sisolak, and he take, mandate, mandate, mandate. Why are we following that? We cannot, we should not. We have to think about the welfare of our children, the teachers. The teachers are the ones forming our children's minds to take over our jobs and lead this country when we cannot anymore. We have to nurture that. Let them be kids. Let them grow up the way they should grow up. It's clear that, you know, there are some people on this board that are clearly fighting for our kids, fighting for their well-being, and fighting for what's right, truth, and fact. And others, I don't feel that. You know, we come back to that red line in the sand. We got to pick a side. No more masks, no vaccines. We cannot do it to these kids, because Fauci and our godless commie governor, they're going to be held liable. We're either seriously misinformed, those of you who aren't on our side, or you're complicit. I don't know what other way to put it. And those of you who are seriously misinformed or complicit, you don't need to be here. You should be recalled.
Thank you. Tiffany Criddle. There we go.
Hello,
Tiffany.
my name is Tiffany Criddle. I was born in Elko. I graduated in Spring Creek, and I have 2 children currently in the Elko County School District. The WHO only a few weeks ago said ages 5 and under should not wear masks based on the safety and overall interest of the child and the capacity to appropriately use a mask with minimal help. Ages 6 to 11, masks were recommended in class only if the school is located where there is widespread transmission and only after consulting with parents and weighing the impacts of learning and psychosocial development. We have never been asked, we've only been told what to do. Biden, Sisolak, and others are now saying all children over 2 must wear masks. A study in England showed 99.995% of the nearly 470,000 children infected within a year's time survived. Children have an extremely low risk of severe illness and death due to COVID. As of last week, Carlin alone only had 7 active cases total. We as parents do not put our kids in harm's way. In fact, it is quite the opposite. Forcing masks, distancing, and weekly tests without parental consent and against the will of the child is abuse. My children do not understand why they cannot be in class without masks, why they can't play with other kids at recess like normal. Masks are very distracting. Children need contact and social interaction with other children. They need that connection, and yes, they do need germs. One of my family members is a nurse, and he always stresses the importance of germs. They need it to build up their immune system, or they will have none. We need to focus on the most important issue here, which is education. My daughter was a full year behind when we were able to come back to class. Without a good support system from her family and from her teacher, she would still be behind. Do not take away her progress by focusing on the wrong issue here. If we force masks, we will lose more ground as time proceeds. We need to be heard. We need fair choice in our children's lives. And I urge you to stand up against the ever-changing tyranny of our government. Stand up to the wavering mandates. This is what we can do right now to see change. The only change we can control at this very moment in time is locally. Choose freedom of choice, represent our community. Now is the time to stand up.
Shasta? Manzanares. Okay, Manzanares.
Manzanares, yes.
Okay.
Good evening. You've heard tons and tons of facts tonight. I'm a mother of 6. I've had 4 children graduate from Elko High School. I'm a teacher at Elko High School. I'm not gonna go on into the facts like everybody else has, but I want parents and you guys to hear what I've observed in my own classroom with masks. You know, we went half the year with distance learning, which sucked. Sucked for kids, sucked for teachers. I hated it. You know, we sat in a classroom for half a year by ourselves. When we came back, the kids had masks on. You would not believe the lack of interaction, involvement with each other, with myself. It was just, the kids were shut down. Yes. When they were able to take those masks off, we saw smiles, we saw interactions. Kids were talking to each other. They were talking to me. They were interacting. It was a whole different world. The science, I agree with everything that's been said tonight. I agree with. What you need to understand is the effects these masks have emotionally and educationally on our kids, because they do not interact when their faces are covered. When this pandemic began, I had a junior. He was a correlator, football player, track. He lost so much. And then as a senior, he lost again. Stop punishing our kids. Let them be kids and allow them to have the things that they are in high school, in school to do, not just the high school, but the elementary schools. I went to the school, the superintendent at the end of the year to voice my concerns about this, and nothing happened. The correlators last year, not one single performance did they get to have. This is not fair, and it's ridiculous. And try to teach in a mask. You can't breathe, you lose your breath, you're exhausted. But I'm more concerned for our kids than for myself. And I will not ever get tested or take the shot. Whether you force me to or not, I'll lose my job before I do that to myself. Thank you.
Andrea Hance.
My name is Andrea Hines, and I have lived in Elko County for 36 years. I went to school here. My kids went to school here, and now I have two grandsons that are going to school here, one of which starts kindergarten this fall. I am against the mask mandates, but I am absolutely for a parent's right to choose what is best for their child. The mask mandate is just a gateway to vaccine mandates. There is no medical, scientific, or constitutional basis for the mask mandates. Now, I don't want to be redundant and repeat what everybody said, because that's pretty much, everything that they said, I 100% agree with, and that's what my speech was about. But I'll go into the couple things that I didn't hear. Last year, the CDC placed on their website that the masks do not help against the smoke particles. So after some research, guess what I found? Smoke particles are significantly larger than virus particles. So do the math. They don't work against smoke particles, and so they won't work against the virus. None of what we are being told makes sense, and they are constantly contradicting themselves. Masks make healthy people sick. And along with that, there are many therapeutics that actually work to fight COVID, but they are being suppressed. So we know that the PCR tests are flawed. So how do we even know that we have a pandemic at all? So I want to know what happened to my body, my choice. Oh yeah, that only works when you want to take the life of an unborn child, but when you want to preserve and protect life, it's a no-go. I read an article last week that stated COVID can be passed through flatulence. So what happens when that narrative goes viral and our governor gets a hold of that info? Are they going to mandate that our children quit farting? Now that sounds pretty asinine, doesn't it? Well, it is, and so is wearing a mask while on a run or driving a car. Something stinks to high heaven here and has nothing to do with flatulence. If you ask me, it's all political, and we need to push back and stop the stupidity, which is the real pandemic here. Meanwhile, as we fight against the mask mandates, Obama and his super elite cronies party on maskless. But the media reports it's okay because they are likely vaccinated, and they are a sophisticated crowd. So we should all be appalled by this hypocrisy. You are a school board, not a health board. Please do not blur the lines. Please do your job and focus on our children's education and let the parents do their job. I implore you to do the right thing and protect our God-given rights to choose what's best for our children, and be careful about the can of worms you open, because next it will be your rights they're trampling on. And if you give them an inch, they will take a mile. Thank you.
Catherine Kelly. Catherine Kelly.
My son's gonna be right after me. He's Lucas Kelly. He's had a form too.
Lucas.
Yeah.
There we go.
But we're separate. He's got a whole speech.
Whole speech, huh?
You good? Okay. He wants me to go first.
Okay, Catherine.
So, hi, my name is Catherine Kelly. I'm a teacher and a mother. Thank you so much for letting me speak. I understand that these are difficult times and you guys seem to be doing your best. I've been watching the board meetings since I moved here last summer and have tried to stay informed, but I have to say, come on. I've been in the educational field for over 15 years. I've worked in Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, all the crazy areas, okay? There seems to be a new challenge. Every single year I'm asked, be brave, have courage, make it work, spend more money out of your pocket, do more. My kids don't even get a mom during the school year, it feels like. And then I have to teach during a pandemic. And my kids sat in a classroom on a tablet for 8 hours a day while I tried to teach other people's kids who couldn't have their cameras on because their home situations were so deplorable. And I had to sit through CPS training meetings because they said that the second that we opened back up, we were going to have our stuff skyrocket. The mental stability of our kids is not okay. I have physically lost students due to the isolation of COVID. They could not be on this earth anymore. It's not okay. Every year you ask us to be brave and have courage and make it work. And it's time that you guys step it up and do your stinking job or get fired like all the other school boards. I am a teacher and I love my job, but when I have my kid coming, I didn't even write any of this down. When I have my kid coming up to me saying, Mom, it makes no sense. I have to wear a mask in the pool now? Guess, honey, I guess that makes sense. How am I as a parent and as a teacher where I'm supposed to teach kids how to think, take this new agenda where it's like, no, just do what you're told? Isn't that what we've been fighting against? Isn't that what Common Core was for, was to teach kids to think? And now I have to teach them not to think and just shut up and listen and just to wear a mask and that their body is not their choice. I have to teach my kid in an age where there is rampant inappropriateness, that if someone says that they need to hug him, that's a no. But when he says, but then why do I have to wear a mask? We are blurring the lines and we are setting our kids up. And I was scared to death to come up here and do this thing because I'm scared for my job. I shouldn't be scared for my job. And with the hiring bonuses that you guys are offering, this is what you should be worried about. If you have to pay me $10,000 to come teach in your district, you should probably be more worried about that. I have to watch blank screen after blank screen after blank screen, and then I never see a kid again because the masks. That's what you guys need to be worried about. This community has said they will support you. We have enough money in this community to make it work, but we will not continue to do this. You guys have to figure it out. Like you asked me to do every year when I put tens of thousands of dollars sometimes into making sure that my kids are successful, and then they lose all of it because they can't see my smile and they don't feel safe.
Hello, my name is Lucas and I am entering third grade. I am here to tell you all how hard wearing a mask was for me and how I really don't want to wear one this year. I understand that at first the masks were needed for safety, but the science doesn't seem to support that anymore. I was able to not wear a mask all summer and even go on a vacation with my family without any problems. Last year was really hard not being able to see people's faces and trying to make new friends. It was really hard for me to see and be friendly when they can't see my smile below my mask. Being the new kid in school was even harder than it normally is. The mask also hurts my belly and would really hard to breathe, especially when it was hot. This made it hard to focus on my schoolwork. Please follow the other schools around us and not require us to wear a mask during school. Allow people to see my smile so that I can make friends, and allow my belly not to hurt so I can focus on my schoolwork. Thank you. Hi, Dad.
Kaylin Sanchez.
Mr. President and members of the Elko County School Board, my name is Kaylin Sanchez. I live in Spring Creek and I have 2 children, one currently enrolled in Spring Creek Middle School and a senior enrolled at Spring Creek High School. The results of today's meeting will determine if they remain enrolled this year. We, the people, have had enough. Our voices keep falling on deaf ears, and the bottom line is the board, with the exception of 2 or 3 of you who do listen to the parents and the stakeholders, is not representing the will of those who elected them. The way the board has been voting on critical issues, especially pertaining to the pandemic, does not represent our community, nor does it align with the oath you took to uphold our US and state constitutions. Sorry, I hate public speaking. The schools have already removed God and parts of history that do not fit the socialist agenda, and now you want to muzzle our children and teach them to literally and figuratively that their voices do not matter. By requiring masks, you sold our children out. You have sold our community out. You have abided by orders from a tyrannical governor who does not represent the people of rural Nevada, and for that, you do not represent this community. The bottom line is that we could have every parent whose child is enrolled in this district standing here today, and the impression we parents and stakeholders have is that you still couldn't care less about our voices, the voices you were elected to represent on this board. You were not elected to be a voice of the school district, of the schools, or of the governor. You were elected to bring the voice of the parents and the stakeholders to the district. Yet here you are, acting as mere puppets being played by puppet masters who will stop at nothing to destroy this country. How much do we continue to allow until enough is enough? We are raising the next generation here. If we do not fight for them, who will? Enough is enough. It's time to stand on moral ground and do what is right. Tyranny has been overthrown once before. It surely can be done again. What is your breaking point? When will this nonsense end? When every single parent has pulled their children from the district? No, that's not it. You rely on those parents who are unable to homeschool and have no choice but to put them in your government indoctrination camps. How about when there aren't any teachers left or faculty left because of the ridiculous protocols and mandates? They're already spread thin and have an overflowing plate. The budget is thin and will continue to grow thinner as an exodus from the government schools in Elko County takes place and more people homeschool.
Steve?
Dr. Christy Armbruster, for the record, I agree with everybody and what they said about the masks. I have a few different thoughts for you. First, I'm working on the bond proposal, but it doesn't make sense. You would be able to have a construction and maintenance fund for 6 years, but we're still paying for it through 7 through 21 years after that. I don't know what money you're going to have. So that's question one. Second, you spent hours figuring out how to get more money, but what about finding ways to save money? Last meeting that we learned that there was a team of people working in the central office creating more work for the teachers without improving the education for the students. The more distance from the students, the less education is happening, more work, less education is happening. So I think we need to get back to the basics, reading, writing, math, so our students can get an education that's valuable. Talk with the teachers. I think we've heard that several times. I don't know if you guys have met with the teachers to see what do you need. Can we simplify? I keep thinking of a one-room schoolhouse, and I think they may have gotten better scores than now because we're teaching to a test. That's a whole another Common Core subject that I was fighting 6 years ago. You guys didn't listen to me. It wasn't you guys, but I told them it was going to drop. Math dropped. Sorry guys, I homeschooled. My kids are doing great. So get out of Common Core. That's another topic. Last thing, 14th Amendment. This is how we get out of the mandates. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property. So I think taking away our ability to breathe, i.e. the masks, or choice with the injections, that is violating our constitutional rights. So let's go back to being a constitutional county and let the people have choice. Thank you so much.
Michelle?
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
I appreciate the position the board is in. You are trying to do what is right. That's what we all hope. I think that everybody here has covered a whole bunch of stuff tonight, so obviously I won't be redundant. The masks have been debunked. I mean, I think we've covered that sufficiently enough. The vaccine has been debunked, or you wouldn't still need your mask if your shot worked. And the vax people are now shown to be 100% of hospitalizations in Australia, Israel, Iceland, basically everywhere that's not reporting just lies. And we now know the vax people are the only asymptomatic carriers. So that's super awesome as well. I personally am outraged over any testing mandate. The American people were duped. In 2019, upwards of 36,000 people died from the seasonal flu and only 634 in 2020. Are you serious right now? The PCR tests are under a class 1 recall for being ineffective. And the ever so ignorant forces that be in Nevada still and only recognize the PCR test results for official counting. Yes, the same ones that must be destroyed by January 1st of 2022 under that same recall. So that was awesome. It's almost like they want to keep our numbers up in Nevada to make us look bad and justify their nonsensical rules. It's pretty amazing. And that's all I have to say to the board tonight. The rest of what I have to say is for all the Facebook trolls. We've been called dangerous for wanting choices. All we want is choice, parent choice, human choice over our bodies, our health, our safety. That makes us extreme? I mean, wow. When did wanting a basic human right as choosing become extreme? And for all those sitting at home and asking why we're allowed to speak, because it's our First Amendment right. This isn't, and for anyone who says this isn't the place for it, well, hundreds, if not thousands of school boards across the country are experiencing the same predicament. And this is exactly the right place for those policies to be addressed. And they want to drag our kids into their politics. This is the result. It keeps coming back to the kids being used by the government. And if you don't think so, you're too daft to understand what is even happening all around you. And doctors still promoting the crazy and not treating patients with any sort of actual treatment. And you'd have to be living under a rock not to know about ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. It works and it's easy. And shame on you. And one day you will answer for the lives unnecessarily lost. And by the way, the CDC's website is an exceptional piece of work. I had to go through about 10 different links within links within links. And this is for that person on Facebook, Elko Daily, by the way. To find the actual reactions reported from the vaccine. Last time I checked, there were 111,000 pages reporting over 6.6 million reactions of all kinds. So get off mainstream media and Facebook because they're freaking lying to you. And being
Kinsley?
someone on the reopening committee, I really seriously suggest that we amend that tonight and include the banning of the testing.
Kinsley?
Hello, my name is Kinsley Wilbur and I'm going into 4th grade at Mountain View this year. When you forced us to wear masks and it made me not like school. Masks hurt my ears and my nose, especially when I have to wear my glasses. I also miss seeing my classmates and teachers' faces. It makes it hard to make new friends too. We spent all summer without masks, having sleepovers, playing sports, and having fun. It takes It does not make sense to put a mask back on our faces to learn at school. Please just let us breathe. Thank you.
Misty?
Misty Atkins, founder of Parents of Elko County. First, I want to thank the board members that are actually fighting, the ones that are actually trying, the ones that are actually researching, the ones that are not. We know who you are and you will be a target. I also would like to say that everyone that has gotten up here and spoken before me, I second everything that they said, especially Brent Kelly. We do reach out to our teachers to the best of our ability and we try to speak for them because as you've heard, a lot of them are scared of being blackballed. They're scared of losing their jobs and not being employable within Elko County and then having to relocate their entire family, not only to a different county, but to a different state, most likely. With that being said, I would really love to see a representative from the teachers union here because there's a lot of teachers that are being forced to pay these dues and they're not getting any representation. And this goes back to stories all the way from 2018. So if we could get a representative from the teachers union here, that'd be really fantastic because we have a lot of questions that they should probably answer. The Nuremberg codes have been referenced, but I also wanted to reference somebody who I really despise, this group. I really do not like them, but I definitely like this article. The UN Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights, Article 6, Section 3. In no case should a collective community agreement or the consent of a community leader or other authority substitute for an individual's informed consent. And I'm referencing that article in reference to the possibility that our children, our students, and our athletes are going to be subjected to random testing if they're not vaccinated. First of all, their vaccination status is nobody's business. I do believe if you do a little bit of research on your own, the ones that have, thank you, I appreciate it. The ones that have not, please step up and do your job. Your job is not for us to inform you. Your job is for us to bring our concerns to you. You take that information and you do your own research so that you can be informed yourself. Our job is not to tell you what to do. Our job is to bring you our concerns. We can tell you what to do all day long, but if you don't do that research by yourself and for your own, it's no different than the governor telling you what to do and us bucking that. Now, if the governor, if the governor has no say over the athletes, or if the governor tells the athletes or the coaches that the athletes need to be tested, then the school board needs to override the governor again on that level so that the teachers or the coaches and the athletes have protection because no student should be leveraged with a test because they do not have a shot in order to play a sport within this county. It's just ridiculous. I just want to reiterate, I really and truly support everything that everybody's come up here and said. Thank you again, board members. And I'm so proud of my community right now.
Joe Harless.
Evening, board members. My name is Joe Harless. I'm a father of 6, 3 of whom are in the school district. I'm also a 3rd grade teacher in this district. So I'm well aware of the challenges posed by forcing kids to wear masks from a parent and a teacher's perspective. During recess, my students would ask me if my students couldn't breathe and so they would not run as much because they couldn't breathe. They would ask me if they could pull their mask down for a quick breather. I would tell my students to go somewhere where no one could see so they could take a breath. I had to tell them this out of fear that another teacher or staff member or parent who I did not know personally would tell my administration and then I would have to be reprimanded. This has happened a few times. I have had staff members see me being compassionate to one of my students by letting them pull down their masks for a quick break and see me pulling my own mask down for a quick break after playing with my students at recess, which I do that. I play with my students because I believe that's how we build relationships. These staff members would go and tell my administration, which I was then talked to. I'm not blaming my administration in any way because they had their orders just like we had ours. make sure your students wear their masks appropriately. Teachers and students literally lived in fear for the majority of last school year. People were turning on each other when they saw someone not following orders of wearing the mask exactly correctly. Teachers were pitted against each other, parents against teachers. Is this the kind of learning environment we want to be working in or teaching kids in? No. We as teachers are supposed to lift our students up, teach them to be critical thinkers. But at all last school year, we had to keep telling our students to mask up and don't ask questions. How can we teach our students to be critical thinkers when we as adults are not thinking critically ourselves? We blindly follow them and don't ask real questions. Kids can smell crap a mile away. I know this because my own children with their innocent minds call me out on mine all the time. If I understand it right, our governor has given you, the school board, the authority to decide our students' fate in the next school year. Do the right thing. Let the parents decide what their children should and should not wear. We teachers are not getting paid enough to be mask police. Thank you.
Baldwin.
Name's Andrew Baldwin. Now that Sisolak has given the county's authority to decide on masking in schools, I would hope that our school board supports parental choice. The value of communication through facial expression is priceless to children. There are roughly 73 million children ages 0 to 17 in the United States. There has been a total of 349 deaths in that age group due to this virus that I could see today. Now, I agree that every one of those lives matter, but I also believe that if you looked at the suicide rates due to this virus in that age group, it would far exceed that number. We need to concentrate on the mental health of our children and let their natural immune systems do what it's good at. My kids struggled with some depression from the lockdowns and the distance learning. It was evident in their grades and their desire to be healthy, active kids. They miss their friends and teachers. The next issue we run into is random COVID testing of our students. I don't see how this can take place without the consent of parents. If a child is showing symptoms and there's a reasonable suspicion, I could see asking that child to go home for a period of time or getting tested to prove a negative result. But testing our children at random with the basis that them attending school as consent cannot happen. I would request the board discuss this issue and come up with a different plan. I have sat here and watched the government officials have birthday parties, live entertainment at dinner, and get their hair done while breaking their own mandates and rules, to include Steve Sisolak. It's about time we take power back into our own hands. And I would like to thank the teachers that stood up tonight.
Okay. We're missing. Okay. There you go. All right. Do we have anyone else? I've gone through the speaker cards. If not, I have some other letters that I want to read into the record. Dear Elko County School Board of Trustees, I write today as a concerned resident of Elko County and parent of children enrolled in Elko County schools. Over the past several years, I have been pleased with the education my children have received in this district. I have believed that the members of the Elko County School District Board of Trustees have acted in the best interest of my children and community. I've placed my trust in them to educate my children and provide them with a safe environment in which to learn. However, recently that trust has eroded as I have witnessed the undue influence over the board wielded by a group of outspoken activists who purport themselves to represent the parents of Elko County. Let me be clear, I am a parent of children enrolled in Elko County School, and I do not share the idea and agenda of this group. They do not represent me. I believe in science and respect knowledge-based expertise gained through education and experience. When the highly educated experts at the Center of Disease Control and Prevention make a recommendation regarding public health, I take it seriously. The members of this board should also, as they are the ones in the position to provide this city's children with a safe learning environment. The CDC's current position concerning masking states the CDC recommends universal indoor masking for all teachers, staff, students, and visitors to K-12 schools, regardless of vaccination status. Masking is easy and it saves lives. Failure to follow the CDC recommendation set a bad example for the community and endangers the health of Elko's school children. As elected school board trustees, you have the duty to act in the best interest of Elko County school children. That means that their education and, in this instance, their health is in your hands. Your actions regarding this responsibility should not be influenced solely based on the best interest of Elko's school children. In this case, the science is clear. Masking when in closed areas reduces the spread of COVID. Please do the right and require masking for all students, teachers, staff, and visitors at Elko County schools. All right, JL, please. We can disagree, but we don't need to be disagreeable. So let me read these, please. To whom it may concern, I'm writing with concerns about school openings and the mandates that will be put in place. I'm a parent of children that attend schools in Elko County. I want my children to receive a proper education within the schools, but also want my children to do so in a safe environment. I know Elko County is against masking, social distancing, and all safety protocols. However, there are parents in the area who are and want to follow safety protocols to keep our children and families safe. My children were enrolled in NNVA last year, and it worked for the year, but I feel it's nothing like being in the classroom, seeing the teacher, not being on a computer screen all day. I want my children to be back in school, but want to do it safely. If masks become parental choice and social distancing is not required, I do not feel that allows for safety of all children, especially with the Delta variant that is affecting children. After some thought, an idea for parents who have different opinions may be to pull a teacher from each grade level, like what was done for NNVA, but to have a physical, I'm not sure and how it can work for 7th through 12th, but this idea can be a start for more ideas from others. I hope this is something everyone can take into consideration. Heather, hello, I have your email address. Anyway, going down to the board. I am writing to ask for your consideration on having the CDC guidelines followed in our schools, even though we have a population under 100,000. Mask cleaning, distancing has been recommended. And although this is a mandate for the community, it is not being followed by the majority. I would like to see it followed in the schools. I understand parents want to choose whether their child wears a mask or not, which is fine for when the parent is there, but what about when they're not? It's not like at the store, one parent and a kid or two. A school teacher is trying to teach 20 or more kids, and for the child without a mask, they will always need to ensure they distance from the kids who have a parent who has chosen to mask theirs. poor teachers have enough to do. Wearing a mask protects you from the viruses going on to others. Elko County was listed as one of the 12 out of 17 counties considered high for COVID-19, and it worries me. The under 12-year-olds, only prevention to COVID is a mask, clean and distance, as there isn't vaccines available yet. Over 12 years old have a choice. I feel it would have been better to attend in person the board meeting, but felt intimidated by the voices of parents should choose campaigners. The community seems to have gotten hostile towards each other, and it's heated subject. Thank you. This letter is in regard to what I can only assume will be the mayhem of a meeting this coming week. And I would like to share my opinion on masking for K-12. I cannot show up at the meeting because I don't deem it safe for me or my family. I believe that by speaking out in person, I would put a target on our backs. I am not willing to take that risk, as I believe the pathetic bullies of that parenting group in Elko are bordering on being unhinged. They certainly have made the school board meetings hostile with their misinformation and lies, leaving little room for dissenting opinions. I thought that the school board's position were supposed to be non-political, but what appears to be the school board's blind support of that parenting group indicates otherwise. Still, I need to speak my mind. The pandemic is a worldwide public health issue, and the schools in Elko are public spaces for children. So we are dealing with a public health issue in the public space. My family believes in science, but my kids are too young to be vaccinated at this point. This means that whatever decision you make regarding masking will directly impact my kids, who are the most vulnerable members of my family. According to NRS, my kids have rights too, and they have a right to an appropriate public education. We have stayed home for about a year and a half and taken all the precautions we could think of to not get sick or spread the virus. And it's our turn to be able to return to society. Now that the vaccine is available, free and for all, we assume you would never mandate the vaccine, which is what should happen from a public health standpoint. But you have the power to enforce masking in our schools. And I think you should think long and hard before choosing to make masking a choice. We do not want our children to be infected in school. It is really that simple. And you have the power and the duty to protect our young children and in turn their families and the rest of the community. If people choose not to mask their kids, then these unmasked kids should stay home or for online education. We cannot have unmasked kids in public school until we have higher percentages of vaccinated adults and thus a better handle on the COVID virus that are floating around right now. It is not fair nor right that the ones harming others get to run around freely in the public schools, while those who believe in science and follow CDC guidelines are left with no safe in-school option. Our kids need to be back in school, but they need a safe environment, or at least as safe as we can make it. And that includes everyone in school masking up. It's not difficult. It's not a hardship. Many kids who are having a problem with masks are likely influenced by their parents. My kids have never complained about masking in school. This is probably because they are compassionate children who value learning while protecting their fellow students. We have done that. We have done what we can for this community by following every guideline for the year and a half. We have done our share while most of Elko refused to help their community. A 25% vaccination rate is shameful, and we see the parents out and about around town without their masks. All kids have a right to a safe in-school education now. As a school board members, it is your primary duty to provide that safe learning environment. Kids should not have to worry about their lives at school because of various groups, political agenda. Masking makes sense. It is what the CDC recommends for a safe school environment. Please do the right thing. Require masks for K-12. To whom it may concern, I'm writing with concerns about school openings and the mandates that will be in place. I'm a parent of children that attends Elko schools in Elko County. I want my children to receive a proper education within the schools, but want my children to do so in a safe environment. These names that let me finish the last one, okay? I know Elko County is against masking, social distancing, and all safety protocols. However, there are parents in the area who are and want to follow safety protocols to keep our children and families safe. My children are enrolled in NNVA last year, and it worked for the year. But I feel it's nothing like being in the classroom, seeing the teacher, not being on the computer screen all day. I want my children to be back in school, but want to do it safely. If masks become parental choice and social distancing is not required, I do not feel that allows for safety and the children, especially with the Delta variant that is affecting children. After some thought, an idea for parents who have different opinions may be to pull a teacher. That one is a repeat of another one. So anyway, okay, that's the last one that I have right there. So moving on to the next agenda item. Item 2.01, Superintendent's Report, non-action item. Mr. Smith.
Okay, I provided the board with a pretty comprehensive report on Friday. Hopefully you all received it and had an opportunity to go through it. In terms of an update from then till now on staffing, there's 84 new hires, licensed hires, 7 outstanding offers, and 48 current vacancies. The only other addition to that information that I provided on Friday is that the science building on the Elko campus is completed. They're working on punch lists. The performing arts building continues to move along. The classrooms will be available barring any issues with the city. We should get a certificate of occupancy prior to the start of school. The auditorium, however, will not be complete by the start of school. They need some additional weeks to install lighting and sound systems. Other than that, there's a construction update for the rest of the projects in the district attached to the agenda item, and I have nothing further to report.
Did the remodel, the flip of the administration office, is that completed? There was to the new building and the.
I don't think it's completed because I know that we have some administrators that are in temporary
I thought we
areas.
padded it and that we were going to be guaranteed that it would be completed.
I think it will be completed, but I mean, it's not completed as of today.
And did you say we had a certificate of occupancy for the science building?
Yes.
Okay, we do have it for the science building. And what we're doing is we're looking at all the classrooms in the performing arts to get that certificate of occupancy
That's
as we
correct.
get closer to the start of school. Okay, yeah, and following up with what Luke said, the remodel is, I think, moving along at the desired rate to have those available. So are there any questions of the superintendent?
Can I ask a question about the update itself? Is that okay?
Yeah.
On the mental health services and support committee, have we
Yes.
reached out to Elko PD and Sheriff's Department to involve them? Because I know just communication, community wide.
Our SROs are part of that committee. Sergeant Ribieska is on the committee. She represents the Elko County Sheriff's Office, but we have SROs that are part of both departments, so she has access to the knowledge of.
Okay,
of
well, I'm
both
just thinking
sides.
communication, especially when we're not in school, if suicides or,
Yeah.
issues come up like we talked about last
Mhm.
meeting.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, moving on to item.
Small recess.
Yes. 5-minute recess. Okay. We're in recess for 5 minutes.
Cops meeting, Commission on Professional Standards, State's Attorney General said it's a lot of
Okay.
other people outside.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that we need to figure out.
especially if there's no.
Yeah, well, they had initials of that, so, yeah.
We can't even put it in the minutes if there's no paper.
I don't know. That was a question we were trying to find out today, earlier. And Rob's on his way to Fort Collins. Drop his daughter off at school, so.
That's right. Sunday. Last one. I mean, bittersweet. They get pretty smart.
No more minutes, it's mostly.
I'll look.
So Reno's October 8th and 9th.
Yeah, just let me know.
Thank you so much.
It's the same training as the one being held in Vegas.
Good.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. 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 As good as,
I'm good.
well, yeah, the only thing
I
it
have
creates is,
But I
creates
needed it,
another
yes.
issue. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember when, but it's one of the, seems like it's one of the, no. Thank you. Actually, the one that they normally do the buyouts on. That's one I got. They had, yeah. Oh, man, come on. Dang it. It's Charles. Charles?
Yes, sir.
Candace is stating that the volume is coming in and out with the remote. Can you check that?
Yeah, I think that's because the ceiling mics are turned down to keep the board members' audio up, and we were during the break, so there was only bits and pieces of open mics that were coming in. Once things get kicked off again, that should clean right up.
Okay, she's giving us the thumbs up. Did we miss it? We got everybody back? Call the meeting back to order. All right. Moving on to agenda item 3.01, receipt of information regarding the current status of and proposed modifications to the draft plan for safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services for possible action. Do we have any?
Move to approve.
This, the chair isn't going to accept that motion right now because it doesn't have the additional modifications. All right, a little bit of background for everyone. A committee was established by this board to have the committee chaired by trustee Wines, Candace, and they met, went through, they looked at the original document and the reentry plan that we had from a previous last year, and went through and put some things in there. During that period of time, we had not heard back from the governor's office with regards to things that were included in our letter, the letter that this board submitted to the governor. And so the state superintendents met with the governor and went through. All of the districts were pretty much on the same page, looking at what things they would like to see in their plan, not necessarily just a reopening plan, but refer to it as the plan. And the points that were brought out that this plan is a base point from which this district is going to look at what other items are we going to include in our reopening plan. The thing that tonight is I would like to go over some of the specific things that I think strengthen this plan and have this board go through and approve to refer this back to that committee, the reentry committee, to go through and blend in these items and bring that plan back to us at our next meeting to be adopted. We're going to go through and we're going to talk about the specific things that we think that it looks like we can address in this reopening plan. And first and foremost, as we look at that particular plan, the first thing is students are not required to wear face coverings inside any Elko County School District building. However, students always have the option to wear face coverings inside district buildings if they elect to do so. Students exercising their opinion to wear a face covering will be fully supported by their decision by the district staff. That's a key component right there. All students, K-12 and all district staff are required to wear face coverings while on school buses. Parents, let me finish. Parents, vendors, volunteers, visitors, and guests are required to wear face coverings inside district buildings and on school buses. Testing of those involved in school-based co-curricular and extracurricular activities, including athletics, is required for those who are not fully vaccinated when traveling out of county. Testing of those.
You're not going off of the plan that was talked about during the committee. No. You're going off of a.
These were the suggestions.
Well, the reopening plan was based off of Emergency Directive 47.
Yeah, this is off of 48.
Well, I know I have 48 here, which 48 does not say at any point that staff have to. It's a option.
Recommendation.
Where is it? It is recommended that all teachers, staff, students. It is recommended that all teachers, staff, students, and be masked. It doesn't say it has to be.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm not understanding what you're reading. I don't also understand, and then we can go back to your presentation, why we can't just amend the plan that needs to be popped, like item 5 needs to be taken away, as we discussed during the meeting.
Right.
Item 6 needs to be revisited. Why can't we just amend it today and amend it today? Why are we waiting again?
If that's what the board would like to do, that's an appropriate,
I don't think we can wait for another meeting.
Yeah.
okay,
Well, because, I
okay.
mean, we have two options. We can't wait, because some parents will agree, some won't. Pro or nay mask, at this point, it doesn't matter. They have to have time to plan if they're going to pull their kids or not. Whatever we agree.
Okay, please. Okay. Let the board speak and. Okay. Okay, how would you like to proceed? Go down through?
Well, we can actually talk about what Directive 48 was.
Well,
The summary, the actual.
no, Luke,
Yeah.
what you were saying is looking at what plan came out of that committee.
Okay.
So if we go down through and if we take a look at that in the introduction, schools will open for full-time in-person learning on Monday, August 30th, 2021. Elko County School District reopening plan will be a full in-person learning model. Schools will be in session 5 days a week for in-person on-campus learning for schools following a 5-day schedule, and 4 days per week for schools that follow a 4-day schedule. Students will be accountable to all Elko County School District policies and regulations related to in-person learning as set forth by policy, regulation by Elko County School District, i.e. grading and attendance policies. All right, only if local health authorities close schools or limit school operation will a combination of distance education or hybrid model be implemented in response to universal public health threat or condition. This plan has been developed by a committee including citizens, parents, staff, public agencies, community partners, and board members, and will be considered for additional public comment and approval by the Elko County School Board of Trustees at their August 10th, 2021 board meeting. Communications is the goal of Elko County School District to provide families, students, staff, and community partners with information regarding the 21-22 school year on a continuous basis. A combination of district and school websites, emails, social media, telephone calls, and press releases will be utilized to reach parents, students, and staff. It is imperative that parents update Infinite Campus contact information as it changes to ensure contact with students and families as Elko County School District continues to plan its reopening for the 21-22 school year. Emergency management. In the event that local health officials, in conjunction with the Elko County School District Superintendent, declare a public health emergency in one or more of the schools, school closures may be necessary to stop or limit transmission. Elko County School District will utilize a communication plan to contact stakeholders for more information on school closures, COVID-19 guidelines during outbreaks or suspected outbreaks in school settings. Reopening school grounds and buildings. Elko County School District will open schools, offices, and grounds for instructional, administrative, and extracurricular activities as follows. Schools will proceed according to approved 21-22 school calendar approved for 5-day and 4-day school weeks. 2, full-time distance learning will be available through Northern Nevada Virtual Academy. Regardless of model, full-time status, or a short-term absence, the Elko County School District has provided all enrolled students with Chromebooks and has hotspots available for those who need internet connectivity at home. Number 4, regardless of the model, all learners with IEPs, individualized educational plans, students with 504s and English language learners will continue to receive their support and accommodations to support their learning based on their plans and team decisions. Number 5, Directive 047 reinstates masks for individuals in public places, including schools based upon the CDC revised recommendations, which state wear a mask indoors in public if you're in an area of substantial or high transmission.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, can I interrupt for a moment, please?
Yes.
Are you wanting us to make comments as you go along to amend this plan? Because when it comes to number 5 there, we discussed it in the committee and it was decided then to just strike number 5 out. So I'm not sure why it made it into the final plan.
Okay. I was just reading where it said that, and that was where the first statement that I had started to read, I think, would be placed in there,
So
or a
then
statement similar to that.
Chair Cooney,
Yes, sir.
can we put a motion on the floor then and then amend as we go? Like trustee Wines was saying, or do you want to amend first and then put a motion on the floor? Because number 5 should not, with the new directive, should not be there.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, if we go through.
I think we can.
So I move to approve with forthcoming amendments.
Okay.
Thank you, Ira.
Would you want to amend?
That's what he just
Well,
did.
we're going, we'll amend as we go.
Okay, so your amendment would then be, what language would you like to see in item 5?
I say we just strike it out.
Okay, we
completely.
can strike the existing language, and do we have replacement language that we'd like to?
Teresa, are you making notes or Cassandra has a hard copy? Teresa, can you hear us?
I'm also making notes.
You're making notes? Okay.
Okay, Kaylee, thank you.
Thanks, Kayla.
Okay, so strike Directive 47 because the governor, well, we have Directive 48 now. Do we want to make a statement in there that masks will not be required? It's going to be in 6, okay? Let's planning on amending the document, taking 5 out. Moving on to 6, school leaders and staff will be encouraging all individuals to follow current state and local guidance in regards to wearing masks.
I have a problem with that verbiage because as the teachers have said, it's not their job to police masks.
I agree with that.
Okay. So to strike that,
The district is encouraging and recommends if we want to add that, but leaves it up to the individual child. I don't think the staff
Right.
should be policing.
Okay,
I could be wrong. I mean,
Isn't
No.
that what, isn't that what Directive 48 says?
Mhm.
So we can take
we can take.
Directive 47 out, and put Directive 48 in an amendment.
okay.
I'm not sure you, have you read Directive 48? It's
It's
fairly
got,
lengthy.
it's got some other things in it
Need
too.
to come out.
Yeah,
Yes, I think, well, my suggestion, and I'm pretty sure people aren't going to like it, but this, we can work with it. My suggestion is to just replace number 6 with masks will be optional for all students and staff unless an outbreak is determined by local public health authorities.
okay. State that again, please, Candace.
Masks will be optional for all students and staff unless an outbreak is determined by local public health authorities.
Okay. And we'll utilize that as amendment to number 6.
This is a meeting between
Wait.
the trustees.
Please hold your comments here until we get everything lined around. Okay,
So can I ask a question?
yes, sir.
So only if local health authorities, can choose to close a school, is that in working with the board? I know it just says superintendent, but what constitutes an outbreak? Is it 10 kids? Is it 20 kids? Is it 100 kids? I mean,
That usually is where we're pushing it back on the local officials, as we call them, which would be at this point,
Yeah.
as of right now, Mr. Putnam and his team.
well, what's that number? Is
And
there-
also it would fall back on the nurses.
Multiple.
That's the thing. We're not health officials.
No, I know, but I
We
mean,
don't have those
has he
backgrounds
directed
to be
us in
doing it
a
as
certain,
the bo- I can't hear the trustees over there.
has he directed us, like, has he given us guidelines? I mean, what
There is guidelines. The 2 different classrooms.
So the definition of an outbreak, as provided with the information that I have,
Yes,
reads as follows. A school-wide outbreak is defined as any outbreak that extends beyond one classroom or isolated setting. Local health authorities will make outbreak determinations based upon findings of case investigation and contact tracing and relative to the specific local setting. That's the definition of an outbreak as provided in the information received in our office.
I think to answer your question, Robert, that's going to fall back same as last year, where it falls back on the team of nurses and contact tracing who work with the local. We do have to have some kind of give on that one, where they are going to have, for example, what happened even if it was an unpopular vote, the closing of Elko High School a couple of weeks before the end of the year. At that point, they determined that we have to try to handle it.
not,
Not us.
sorry, drink that water too fast. I just want to know what the definition of an
yeah.
Outbreak was.
And that's,
for my,
this thing is evolving as we go through from day to day. So, if there's an exact number that you had to have 2 kids in the same class, to declare that to be an outbreak. And that's still unsure.
Chair Cooney.
So to be clear, it's not 2 kids in one class. It's an outbreak that extends beyond one classroom.
Okay,
Is
so
what it
one
says.
classroom. Shasta?
It's point of order, Jim. Point of order.
Okay. State
Just
your
like,
point.
well, I was just going to say, Dr. Oliver had suggested that we got to make sure that this is a meeting between and deliberation between trustees and not the
Okay.
public. They've given
Yeah.
public comment and they'll have their opportunity at the end.
Yes, and if the audience would please listen, you'll have another opportunity to ask questions or to state your position. So the board will go through and let's see what we can come up with as far as the amending of the document that we have in front of us.
Chair
Yeah,
Cooney,
I have a,
just
so I
had
have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Candace.
Sorry.
ahead.
I had a question then for Mr. Smith. So when you were stating, like 2 kids in a classroom being sick isn't going to necessarily mean an outbreak, right? And my other question is, then will this be local? Surely this would be localized for each school. So for instance, if Elko High School is having an outbreak, that may affect that school, but that wouldn't necessarily affect Carlin, correct?
That is
Right.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Jim, I
Cooney.
have a suggestion.
Okay. Teresa?
I think on number 6, how Candace suggested masks will be optional for all students and staff. I think we should just end with a period there and then follow up with, we recognize the individuals have the power to choose. ECSD will be prioritizing learning of core subjects. I think that next part is really important. Our job is education, and we are emphasizing education and moving forward with obtaining the goals in our performance plan. So I think that part should be in there, but I think we strike the first sentence, start with masks will be optional for all staff and students as we recognize individuals have the power to choose, and then use the rest of that paragraph 6. Because when Candace talked about unless an outbreak is declared by local public health authorities, that is covered in number 7, I believe.
Yes. If a localized outbreak of COVID-19 occurs, the temporary closure of classrooms or a school may be necessary.
Is
I like
Bob,
that suggestion.
is Bobby available?
Say that again.
Bobby, the head nurse.
Oh, Bobby Shanks, are you on?
Good evening. Yes, I am on.
So Bobby, quick question. So last year when we did move ahead, just for comparison's sake, so we know what we're walking into when we say outbreak, when you did decide with the local officials to shut down Elko Spring Creek, what was your methodology? How did you start and finish, and how long did it take? I believe it was about 4 to 5 days before we actually pulled the plug on that one. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It was a crazy time. I'll give you that. Basically, we contact trace and work through the cases that are presented to us. And then we communicate those to the local public health officer, and he makes those determinations based off of his guidelines.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Chair Cooney,
Yes.
I just had a question. So Directive 48 is clear about the fact that the language, and this is so the public can hear this deliberated, it is a recommendation, not a mandate then for the mask.
Yes.
No ethics violation for us not wearing them as adults in this space in the rural counties, correct?
I don't know.
If it's a recommendation,
It is a recommendation, not a mandate, the way it's worded from what I can
The way
interpret
it's
it anyway,
worded?
yeah.
Okay.
so we face no ethical for making a decision?
No.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Mr. Cooney, I guess why don't the other committee members?
It's not a committee meeting, it's the board.
It's the
meeting.
board. It is the board.
We couldn't because of timing. We got the directive Thursday, I believe. And so there was or Wednesday, I believe Tuesday, one of those days. And we couldn't have a committee meeting right before because this plan had to be on the agenda. That's why we're amending it now, if you will. I know it's a.
I understand it. So there was a whole committee.
Yes, and I wanted to, when I started this, the idea was to take it back to that committee And that committee can be going through and working throughout the year because any other amendments can be added by addendum to this particular document. So we've got to get, the pleasure of the board is to get the document ready to look at and to vote on this evening. But we're definitely grateful for the work that the committee has done. And we'll probably continue to work with this particular item. Mr. Smith.
Just additional information in terms of guidance received by our office. If you recall last year, like when Elko, the thing at Elko High happened, people were already in masks. So there's an intermediate step because people are unmasked now. So the first stage that's comes in the guidance would not be to close the school. That wouldn't be in response to an outbreak. The first response would be to implement masking. If that doesn't control the outbreak, you would move on to things like closing the school.
And that's, once again,
If
where
there's
there's
an outbreak, masks aren't gonna help.
Well, I'm just informing.
No,
the board of the guidance.
well, that's where in this case, Dr. Putnam would actually make the recommendation. If obviously we're testing with a valid trusted test. We have 180 kids who test positive, obviously we have to shut down the school. If it's just 10 or 12, maybe we can mitigate it per classroom, so on and so forth. And then like Mr. Smith was saying, one classroom would be masked, the runs around them would be masked, so on and so forth. Does that make sense? So it's going to be a layered approach. So it's not all or nothing.
And I would assume that it would be teachers more so than students, that if we lost enough teachers and didn't have substitutes to cover them, then that's when we're SOL.
May look at that. Yeah. All right, moving on down through. Do we have a pretty good idea of where we're at with this, with number 6? Okay.
Number 6 and 7, yeah.
6 and 7, we're good. 8, COVID-19 vaccinations are not required to enroll, attend, or be employed by Elko County School District. We're all good there.
Jim, I think in that one, we also add, vaccinations are not required to enroll, attend, participate in athletics or activities, or be employed. I think we should add that in.
Does 8 and 9 extra and co-curricular activities, does that include what you were talking about?
Actually,
Teresa?
that brings me to one question. I with the
That-
NIAA. No, but it actually falls into that same thing. With the NIAA, it's the state agency, right? So they dictate the rules on the sports?
Yes.
They do.
They do, but it's not made a condition yet, correct? And so what Teresa was saying, I think is good because we're not requiring it currently, right?
Right.
And the next one is saying if the NIAA comes down, because they can say you're not participating in athletics statewide because of your stance, we would have to come back to this.
And so my point to you, Brian, then, if the NIAA comes back and says, like last year, every student has to be tested weekly, coaches have to be tested weekly, they have to be vaccinated, what is our stance at that point? Can we
We would
fight
have
them
to
or
make,
no?
we'd have to make some difficult decisions.
Because our kids just can't, they could still play locally, they just can't play with other teams then.
Right.
At the end of the school year last year, the NIAA said they were gonna turn it over to the districts to decide how they're going to handle sports.
Okay.
Right at the end of the year, it was convenient.
Yeah.
Last year, at the end of the year, right at the end of the school year, the NIAA said they were going to leave it up to the individual school districts on how they were going to handle sports, but it happened right with about 3 weeks left in school.
Right. Again, my job is to provide the board with information that I receive relevant to what you're discussing. This afternoon, we received updated guidance from the NIAA, and there's lots of stuff in it. I have not been able to go through it in its entirety, but just know that there are sections of it that are titled for example, mandatory face covering. So there are components of this guidance from the NIAA that are pertinent to the discussion on masking, whether it be on buses, in venues, and it also has information on guidance on testing for athletes. Not saying I agree with any of it. I'm just informing the board that we've received guidance from the NIAA in that regard.
So that those items can have a bearing on what this document.
Certainly, it has a bearing on number 9.
So I would say, Teresa, yeah, why don't we add your proposal to number 8 and separate it from number 9, just in case, once we get the proper documents in hand, we can actually tackle that one. That makes sense?
Yes, correct.
I agree.
We have that down. Got it?
And
Okay,
so-
very good. I got a
Sure.
thumbs up.
Yeah, I like it too. I had another question though.
Okay.
Essentially then, Superintendent Smith, the NIAA then is mitigating things like, I know we play truckee, so it'd be mitigating across state lines, mitigating what counties have as far as their guidance for their county.
Yes, I mean, the intent of their, and some of this I can discuss with the board without reading what's in the
Right.
guidance, because I participated in numerous meetings with superintendents across the state. But the NIAA, for example, has defined certain sports as close contact sports, and those are sports of football, basketball, and wrestling. Those 3 sports have rules that are different from the other sports governed by the NIAA. I think the purpose of some of the guidance is to attempt to contain transmission of viruses across county lines by bringing teams across county lines into other communities. Most of the rules are attached to just teams traveling out of county. In other words, they have to be tested the week prior to them traveling to Humboldt County. If they're not traveling, you don't test the athletes. But there's a lot to unpack in this guidance, but it has bearing on all of this.
Okay, I have a question, Mr. Smith. Those in that guidance from what you've seen so far, is that only for unvaccinated athletes or co-curricular activities or whatever, or is it for the entire team, coaches, staff, et cetera?
You know, they do, it does speak to unvaccinated. The problem with the whole discussion on vaccinated and unvaccinated is no one knows who has been vaccinated and who hasn't. We don't know what employees that work for us have been vaccinated. And we certainly don't know what students have been vaccinated. So it's almost, I would say it's impossible for us at this point to align with guidance related to vaccination status. It just can't be done. So.
Yeah, well, and my comment on that is there are laws, correct me if I'm wrong, right, against discrimination in our state and our
Certainly.
school. Our board policy, I'm pretty sure, says that we will not discriminate. And to me, that would be an absolute discrimination against someone based on their vaccination status.
Well, Candace, that is covered on item 8, I believe. If we add the addendum that Teresa wanted to include sports and activities, we won't have that issue of vaccination.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the testing. See, they're saying that we have to test all these.
And that was my question with the NIAA. How do they govern us, or how can we fight them? And that was actually my question on what's their role compared to us and our district.
And why aren't we
Well-
exempt from this stuff if we're under 100,000 people?
Well, here it's because if we're going to Truckee or whatnot, if we're traveling, that's the biggest issue. If we're just playing here, Spring Creek's playing Elko, we're playing Wells, it doesn't matter per se. It's just once we're traveling outside
Yeah.
of this.
And I see a big discrimination.
Wrestling would be going to Idaho or.
I
you know,
can't
out of
give Luke a
state, so.
technical answer to his question other than to say that the NIAA governs all extracurricular activities that occur in the state of Nevada. And all districts and all schools are subject to the guidance. Most of the operational legal platform that sort of undergirds the NIAA is found in Nevada Administrative Code. So if you look in NAC, you will find all the state guidance that controls how the NIAA operates.
Okay.
So can we change number 9 to say that we'll adjust according to their guidances once we can actually, so that we can actually approve this plan initially? So like say, so parents know what to see. I mean, we're starting.
So
school in
long
20 days.
as the board agrees with what that guidance is, you could do that.
Yeah, if we've got extra and co-curricular activities will occur according to the guidance from the NIAA, that in fact is their rules or what we're going to participate with, if they have complete control over that. So I don't know if we need to modify that, but if there's a way to make it cleaner and clearer, right now, I don't know that. And that could change, obviously, just like things have changed since yesterday. So.
You know what, I guess like I said, I'm just providing you guys with the information that we're being inundated by, but if you look at section 5, refer board members to section 5 of Directive 48. And that's the part where they talk about counties above 100,000 and ones below it. If you look at the guidance at the bottom of that section, it dictates, it does not make it elective, it makes it mandatory with regard to some of the masking requirements. So I just want to make sure that you guys understand that that's what it says. It doesn't have to, you can decide whatever you ultimately end up deciding, but I don't want you deciding it without making you aware that it's there.
Okay.
And I think number 9 says what you want it to say. Because we're going to have to adapt to what the NIAA comes up with, because otherwise we forfeit competitions.
Which is what I don't want to do.
Right.
Well, for example, here, if you look at one of the last paragraphs of ED 48, finally, weekly regular testing will be required in county school districts, charter schools, and private schools for all students, staff, and volunteers who are not fully vaccinated. Once again, that in and of itself goes against what we stand for anyway, because we're not going to require you to divulge because as per our NRS, per what we've decided a long time ago, if you're religious or any other exemption from vaccination, we are not going to ask you throughout your whole school career. So that in of itself, that paragraph is null and void for us, I would assume. Because we don't know if a kid's vaccinated or not. And if he's 6, we know he's not. And if he's going to go wrestle in Idaho.
Are you referring to the directive or are you referring to the?
I'm not referring to the directive,
reopening?
yeah, the directive.
Oh, okay.
Right, so.
So, Mr. Smith, I just had a question as far as guidance from the NIAA. Is it guidance or is it hard and fast rules? When we
Well,
receive.
it comes in the form of there's a section on declarations. The fact that we've signed a membership application. There's guidance, there's a section on mandatory face covering, mandatory COVID-19 testing and mitigation. There are some, is a section on exceptions. And that would be, the exceptions would be the sports not deemed to be close contact sports. In other words, last year volleyball players had to wear masks. The exception this year is volleyball players don't have to wear masks because it's not deemed, it's an indoor sport, but it's not deemed to be close contact. So they don't have to wear masks, and other athletes listed on the volleyball roster who are maybe not actively participating, but they're on the bench, they don't have to wear masks in the venue as well.
But the coaches and
But the
managers do.
Coaches and there's a section that is entitled "When are face coverings required?" and they go through each sport. You don't wear face coverings in football. Obviously, it's outdoors. But anyway, like I said, this information is pretty voluminous. We've received not only guidance from the governor's office, but guidance from the Department of Education and now the NIAA. So there's a lot of factors involved with all of it. I don't know if that answered your question or not, Teresa.
So what happens if all our parents pull their kids out of the sports that want testing? I mean, how do we look? I mean, I wouldn't want my kid tested every week.
Well, they can go play in private clubs. I think that's the only.
And, you know, we lose all our athletics.
Yeah.
So as we heard though from public comment, then we're doing a disservice to some of our students that really have a passion for playing, like our first gentleman that spoke tonight.
You know, when's enough enough? I mean, we talk about, you know, what can happen to us if we stand up. What's going to happen to us if we don't? I've contacted my own legal, you know, counsel already because I'm tired of just following and not standing up for these kids and these parents and these teachers. And, you know, when's enough enough? We've got to stand up and do something. And I don't think we should make testing mandatory for our kids. I don't. I have a lot of parents that will pull their kids out of football right now. And it's not right.
All right, let's,
Can
What do
I
we
ask
want?
can I ask one more question?
yes, Candace, go ahead.
It would be directed towards Mr. Smith. So if we just take a stand and say, no, our kids won't be tested, is there a possibility that NIAA will not allow our kids to compete?
I think that undoubtedly there's, although, again, I don't want to feed you guys erroneous information, but there's a sanctioning process involved with not following any NIAA rule. Meaning if you play an ineligible player in a football game, the NIAA can require you to forfeit the contest and make it null and void. And that would be playing an ineligible player as determined by their criteria for grade point average, for example. So I think without a doubt, there's probably things in here where the NIAA would try to sanction either a school or the school district for violating the guidance, but I haven't read it. So That's a general answer, Candace.
Thank you.
No players or your.
Oh. Okay. Bring it back here to the board as we move. Do we have the items or a good idea where we're at with number 9?
Not really.
Okay,
I would say for the purpose of this plan, why don't we go ahead and not include number 9? And then we can go over that paperwork and make a decision and see if other schools will play us, and if they'll play us. And it's, I don't want to steal it from the kids either. I mean, they should be playing. They already had a crap year last year.
But as soon as we omit that particular item, then that alerts the NIAA that we're not going to follow their guidelines.
potentially, yeah. So there's a suggestion that we pull number 9. More discussion on that.
I think the NIAA's got us. I think the NIAA's kind of got us over the barrel on it. They can
May
hold
I,
that over our head. We
Read
can
a
stand up.
paragraph to the board.
Yes, please.
I'm just going to read what it says under declarations. It says the NIAA member school districts and schools sign annually a membership application adopting and agreeing to abide by the rules, regulations, and policies of the association. Directive 48 and any other directive, mandate, or guidance from the state of Nevada denoting the NIAA inherently become part of said membership application. NIAA member school districts and schools must comply with the membership application to be eligible to compete against other NIAA member school districts and schools. A non-complying member school district or school may also lose status to compete against member schools of other state associations within the NFHS, National Federation of High School Sports. NIAA member school districts and schools may institute more restrictive measures than the minimum standards established within this NIA guidance, with noted exceptions. Out-of-county opponents traveling must adhere to the more restrictive measures in place from their hosting opponent, with noted exceptions. So that, I mean, I think that is pretty transparent in terms of what they're telling us.
Can we play other non-member districts? Do we know if other
There
districts
are no other non-member
Non-member
districts.
You'll have 17.
Okay, okay, please. Definitely NIAA rules, so I don't think
Does it also,
9.
does it also limit then NCAA participation for athletes planning to compete at the college level?
Does, I'm so,
Well, the notion that we would somehow opt out of the NIAA, I think that would hurt also students who are vying for scholarships at the NCAA collegiate level.
Yeah.
well, I mean, I guess all I would say to that is NCAA schools are subject to guidance from the NCAA with regard to all this same kind of stuff.
Right. I'm just saying though that the NIAA is the pathway to the NCAA.
Well,
Do we want to leave that in there right now? Leave the number 9 in there and move forward. And then as we gather more information, we'll probably be better able to come up with a statement for our plan. We get a few nods. Candace, Teresa, we okay with doing that and moving forward right now? Okay. 10, good hygiene and continued sanitation practices is the best defense for transmission of virus and will be continued in Elko County schools. Moving on, health and wellness of.
Jim, I had one
okay.
addition on that section. I think it's appropriate in this section, or at least maybe Superintendent Smith can address this. As far as our students that are dual enrolled, taking credit from the college, obviously we would probably need a statement in there about that they would have to follow the NG guidance on mask wearing then.
Because the college is requiring masks at that
Right.
point, so.
Right.
So when
Students
our
attend.
kids are on your campus, they would be in fact subject to
The mask wearing.
restrictions on your,
Right.
your campus and who governs you.
And are there any other classrooms though in the high-tech center? So it might be a moot point.
I'm not sure
Okay.
what's over there.
Because I know this two science moved,
Mhm.
but there was still a social studies classroom.
I'm not sure what the.
Okay.
In
occupancy
the
is.
high-tech center.
So I don't know if a clause is needed in that section then for that. Or if that's just understood.
Brian, I don't know that a clause would be needed, just like it's understood that their grades will come from GBC or wherever they are dual enrolled. So I don't think it would be, we would need to put that in because it would just be, if you're enrolled in that school, you'll need to follow whatever their guidelines are. That would be my thought.
Okay, other thoughts?
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Whoa, please,
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Misty,
Point of order.
please. Please, Misty. We're talking a different situation. Okay. Moving on. Health and wellness of students and staff. Elko County School District encourages parents to keep their child or children home if they show signs or symptoms of illness. Staff are encouraged to do the same. Symptoms, exclusion criteria, and readmittance criteria are identified by the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services. COVID-19 guidelines during outbreaks and suspected outbreaks in school settings. Goes through a list of the symptoms, which are typical symptoms: fever greater than 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit, chills, difficulty breathing, new cough, new loss or taste or smell, fatigue, body and muscle aches, headaches, sore throat, congestion, or runny nose, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Once
Mr.
it's
Chairman,
school, yes.
Bobby, if you're still on, I have a question for you regarding the symptoms. Because when this all first started, however long ago this has been going on, when we first went back to school, I thought that there was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought at that time it was, you had to have 2 of these symptoms in order to be, excluded from school or have to get a COVID test or whatever. Is that still the case? Because now I think it's only one of those. And if so, why did that change?
So for Nevada, to my knowledge, that has never changed. I've seen that in some state health districts, but I have not seen it in Nevada, and that guidance for us comes straight from the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services.
Okay, thank you.
So Bobby, just to clarify, so there still need to be 2 symptoms present or just one? I just want to make sure. You said it hadn't changed, but I wanted to make sure and clarify that.
It's always been one. But keep in mind, there is room for assessment. So if a student or person has another underlying condition that might cause those symptoms, there's room for judgment and assessment from that school nurse.
I appreciate you saying that, Bobby, that there's room for assessment, and our school nurses can take that into account. Thank you.
So what do the asterisks mean next to difficulty breathing, new cough, sore throat?
Those are not my asterisks. I don't know.
Anybody?
Not sure if that was included in the last reentry plan.
I say we just strike the
Where the-
asterisks. Nobody knows what their purpose is.
And then,
Yep.
Bobby, just a question. So I have a child that battles migraines. He's had since he was 5 years old. He got sent home quite a few times because he was battling migraines. Number one, it was a mask. Number two, it's, sitting in front of a screen all day. Why are these kids that have these issues and have medicine on file at the school and, these underlying issues, why are they being sent home and having to go get a doctor's note and things like that to get back to school?
So, I don't know the particular instances. If I came across that student, what would be normal? A normal situation is that we would have that on file and we would have said probably medication or, some kind of documentation. So that if we called you and said your child was complaining of a headache and they've been in the system for 10 years, you don't just tell us suddenly that they have a headache or that they have migraines. But we have that on file. It's written on those yellow health forms. We know that they're under treatment. We would assess that, and if it appeared to be their normal situation of typical of their migraines, I don't believe we would exclude them. It's based on assessment, and I can't take one nurse's assessment and say you assess what you saw in that student is wrong, the symptoms that you saw are inaccurate. I have to trust their nursing judgment if there's a continual problem, or we all go through that training. So if we know about it, I don't think that child would be excluded.
Okay. That's been
It's been an issue, and I've
Yeah,
heard it a lot.
it's a
And it happened to my
concern.
own kids, so.
Yeah.
And are we considering when they have these runny noses, allergy season, are we considering, a cough because they just drank a bottle of water like I did earlier and choked on it almost? I mean, what are we, are we diagnosing this at the schools? Are we assessing it or?
So first, nurses don't diagnose. That needs to come from a licensed healthcare provider. And I guess I would expect you as a parent to go talk to that nurse, and if you didn't have success, the administration or myself, if a student choked on some water like you just did, and it lasted for 10 seconds and it's over with, you're exactly right. They shouldn't be excluded. I wasn't there to my knowledge when your child was excluded, so I don't know what they saw or what they complained of. But we all have the same guidance and the same training. So, if there's an issue, and sometimes there are misunderstandings, what a child says or is sometimes different. And you've got to go by your assessment.
Would it be possible, Bobby, that if a child is excluded and the parent can demonstrate, that my child has migraines or whatever, and there's medication there and it's been established, then would it be possible for that child to be let back into school without being out for the 10 or 14 days or whatever it is?
Yes. in every single situation? Not necessarily. I mean, again, it's based off that assessment and did they have a fever along with the runny nose? Is it allergies or, you know what I mean? It's really, there are some gray areas and that's why we have to trust assessment. But if there's an ongoing issue or a concern, those are things we can address.
Okay. Coming back. Those protocols that get implemented, those would be up for addendums at a point when we run into a particular situation or scenario, I guess. But if we're going through and we're conscious of how those symptoms are looked at, and to make sure, the big concern I have is that they're going over the top, that we have some things that obviously it's not just an allergy. It could be something else, and just as long as the folks understand, and are really looking at it from a more proactive approach. So, and contact tracing and isolation protocols are also included in the guidelines by the Nevada Department of Health and Human Services, along with COVID-19 during outbreaks, suspected outbreaks in school settings. All Elko County School District employees are encouraged to take full advantage of the various health and safety benefits offered by the district. Elko County School District continues to work closely with local health authorities and Nevada Department of Health and Human Services and the Division of Public and Behavioral Health to ensure we're following the most up-to-date health guidelines for our schools. I don't think we need anything else in that. Going to nutrition, the USDA has extended meals free of charge through June of 2022 in their effort to plan for a safe reopening in the fall by providing children routine meals. School nutrition program will align with the sites and accommodate the needs depending on which model best fits them. In the event of school closures, food distribution will resume at sites similar to previous services and food security needs. Transportation, Federal Transit Administration requires all occupants on district public transportation to wear a face covering. Exemptions apply. And I guess those exemptions are detailed. Exceptions apply. Buses will transport students at approximately 66% of occupancy, which that stays relatively the same. And I believe in any of the directives, it stayed the same. That language didn't change. Transportation staff will continue to clean and disinfect buses according to CDC guidelines.
So going back to those exceptions, what are the exceptions? I mean,
exemptions, I think it's.
So the exceptions.
Exceptions.
Bobby may be better to answer this, but I believe it means that if a student or a employee has a medical condition whereby a standard face covering does not work, it can be substituted for a face shield. Is that your interpretation, Bobby?
Yes, and then if there's a medical condition, yeah, just like you said, if there's a medical condition or where you can't wear that, yeah, it can be substituted.
Because from my understanding, for the transportation point of view, at least that falls under NDOT, correct? That's a federal issue and a state issue as well. Or does
Yeah,
transportation fall under
It's
us?
both,
Yeah,
because
federal.
all this guidance is full of mandates with regard to
Bingo.
buses.
But what are we gonna do if a kid doesn't have a mask on for the bus? Is the bus driver just gonna leave him on the curb?
Well,
I probably have masks on board.
But if they
Makes,
refuse to put it
makes
on?
sense. Just, well,
I'm just trying to see what happens if my child goes, I leave for work, I know my child's gonna get picked up at 8:10. Never got picked up because she didn't want to wear a mask.
I don't think we leave kids sitting on the curb.
No, I'm not, I'm saying I don't want to put the bus driver in that position. Once again, I'm just trying to take stress away from our district staff.
I would say, Luke, what they do is they do the best that they can. They stay in between the lines with how they deal with people, and they attempt to comply, and they do the best that they can. And
yeah.
that looks like what you might imagine it looks like.
Okay,
Well, and I don't think our bus drivers need to be mass police as well. They don't,
right,
you know,
right. They've got a,
They have
they've got a
a lot
better,
of kids and
more important
lives in it.
job to
So
be working with. So,
I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks.
okay. Mental health support, students, Elko County School District members are committed to supporting students' emotional wellness by offering resources to ensure a smooth transition for students in the fall. Counseling and social workers, Elko County School District employs counselors at all of our school sites and have hired social workers at several of our schools to assist in supporting students. Other available resources, telehealth, communities and schools, UNLV, telecounseling availability, suicide prevention hotline. Employees, the Elko County School District provides an assistant employee program, which includes professional confidential support services, and information of life areas such as family, alcohol, drugs, anxiety, managing stress, parenting, workplace, aging, depression, grief, relationships, abuse. And then these services are provided at no out-of-pocket cost to employees and also include online tools and information. In conclusion, Elko County School District will reopen for full in-person learning on Monday, August 30th, 2021. Elko County School District continues to place learning for all at the forefront of its goals. And Elko County School District administration is committed to provide students, families, staff, and the community with the information needed to safely and efficiently open schools for the 21-22 school year. The majority of our amendments were back in that section, the detailed out sections.
And Chair Cooney, I accept all amendments to my main motion.
Okay,
I don't know if we need to vote on the amendments separately.
all right.
Then-
Do we have all of the amendments that we were dealing with? Okay, so,
I believe I have
wait.
them all noted.
Excuse me?
I believe
Teresa?
I believe I have them all noted.
Okay,
Cassie, I can compare notes if we need to.
yep. Very good. So is there any other amendments that, or additions that we would like to add in from board members?
I'm just very uneasy about the number 9 still. Especially if, you know, there was a comment made that there's testing being done this Thursday already. I mean, if is that the truth? Is that the case that's going on?
Are we starting sports already? Yes, volleyball.
We have
Sports has
teams
started.
we have teams traveling to other districts
So
this
that's-
coming weekend.
Those are falling under the NIAA.
I'm very uneasy
So-
about that.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, yeah,
I would still want to remove number 9. That's just me.
okay, duly noted. All those in favor of the amendments as were presented, signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Luke, your vote?
Nay.
Okay, chair votes aye and the amendments pass.
So then we're voting on the main motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Moving forward to the main motion of adopting the reentry plan with duly noted amendments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Chair votes aye and the motion passes. So we have the document to move forward with. And as was noted earlier, addendums can be added to this particular document at such time as becomes evident that we need to bring it up to the current levels of that the district needs.
Could I just make a request that we get that document forwarded to us so we can see what the NIAA exact
Certainly.
guidelines are?
Yeah, if we can get that information so that the board members have the opportunity to go through and digest that.
Get it to you tomorrow.
Okay. All right, moving on to item 3.02. Receipt, review, and possible approval of recommended revisions to policy DH, district purchasing, first reading.
So
This
these are policy recommendations, minor modifications to policy recommended by our CFO, Julie. And she is here should you have any questions about the recommended policy changes.
Move to approve the changes.
Second.
Okay, moved by Brian, seconded by Luke to approve the changes. My question is, this is the first reading. Do we need to bring this back?
The board can choose to bring it back or they can choose to approve the policy as written.
As
and
written.
Have it
The,
adopted.
the intent of the maker of the motion is
Is
to
to approve
approve
it
it.
tonight. Yeah.
Okay, move on. Is there any other discussion?
Yes, I was just going to comment. I really appreciated the fact that there is a rationale at the end for why we're making the changes. So thank you, Julie. Thank you, whoever did that.
Okay. Other comments? All those in favor of approving the policy DH signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the recommendation for policy DH is approved. Moving on, 3.03, receipt, review, and possible approval of recommended revisions to policy DHE, use of credit cards, first reading action item.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, moved by Brian, seconded by Luke. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the policy is approved. Item 3.04, receipt, review, and approval of request to conduct the 2021 Nevada Youth Risk Behavior Survey in grades 7 through 12. This is an action item. The Nevada, as it says, background information. Is there any questions on this? They did not do this survey last year because they're basically at the beginning of the school year. And for some districts, they never did get back to in person.
Interrupted by COVID.
Yep. So, and so is there any questions or comments? Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay, moved by Ira. Is there seconded by Luke to approve the request to conduct the 2021 Nevada Youth Risk Behavior Survey. Any debate? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the motion passes. Moving to 4.01.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, consent agenda, moved by Luke, seconded by Ira. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signifies by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye, and the consent agenda is approved. Board matters, reports from NASB Director for possible action.
They've extended the comment period to Nevada Department of Ed on how to spend that ESSR money. They've extended the comment period the Nevada Department of Ed has on how to spend the ESSR money and the ARP money. If you guys have got any suggestions on how to spend that. And that's
it?
That's it.
Okay. Item 5.02, items from board members. I have a couple in phone conversation with Deb Oliver with NASB. She has put forth 2 dates to do board training. We've been having difficulty getting to the board trainings. And so she had suggested the 17th and 18th of September. And if that didn't work, the 1st or 2nd of October. Now realizing that the actual conference and the trainings are going to be the end of the first week, going into the second week in November. I'm going to ask that the board members check your calendars to see if either of those 2 dates, and then let Cassie know.
September
And we can-
17th, 18th.
We can get that, the 17th and 18th of September, and the 1st and 2nd of October.
What time are these trainings?
And those trainings will be pretty much 8 to 2, 8 to 4, somewhere in there, depending on the depth at which we get into them.
So are these trainings that are above and beyond what we'll receive at the October and September meetings?
This will fill in some of the
Missed ones from last
the
year?
ones that have been
Okay,
missed.
all right.
Yeah,
They won't satisfy all the training.
no, no. I think we'll have to have the conference trainings as well to meet the requirements of the newly elected board members. So.
And
Other,
Jim, will these?
go ahead, Teresa.
Will Deb be coming here for those trainings?
That was the possibility. Yeah, she said that she would be available those dates to come to have that. So yes, those would be provided here. Other items.
Someone wants to go. I have
Quite a few, so, okay. I'd like to see an agenda item on an upcoming meeting on board governance about contacting the legal counsel, like emailing the legal counsel. I understand we're not, I'm not asking them to do, thousands of dollars of work, but a simple answer to some questions sometimes would be nice. And then also I want to thank everybody for coming out, because we are listening, we have kids in the school, we are listening, we appreciate all the comments that were here tonight. So thank you guys.
Okay, so I'll actually start with the positive and then with the other points. So the positive is last year I was actually approached by several teachers and a few parents about the meal plans and some issues that the kids were having with the meal plans. And so we actually had a very, very productive meeting with Mr. Walt and Mr. Armstrong last week. And I think they have some very, very positive concepts moving forward, and great team, very, very positive feel. And I think all the kids should be happy with what's going to happen next year. So that in of itself was actually a very nice thing that happened last week. Then somebody brought up mental issues. I think it's we look down a lot. Well, not look down, that's a negative. But we tend to forget our nurses and our SROs. Our SROs aren't just here to police our kids. They're not here to slam them on the wall if they don't have a mask, for example. A lot of the SROs actually have very strong bonds with our children, and they can call it out if they're going to be suicidal, if they have an issue. They can pick up on this. I mean, they're professionally trained law enforcement anyway, so they do have that kind of sense with them. So we really do need to look out for our nurses and our SROs, who are really a huge part in our district, especially in times like this where children are having so many issues. So that's the positive. The other issues I'm having right now, which I could use clarification, I'm sure, at a later time, because I'm sure we won't be able to do it today, is I've asked since November, I think, several times, if we could have a survey with teachers. Because here I am actually supposedly going to make decisions on policy, on directions. I don't know who I'm representing because I'm not allowed to talk to teachers. I'll agree that I am not a micromanager. That's not my job as a board member. I will never tell a teacher or administrator what to do, how to do their job. That is not what I'm here for. However, if they have a problem, they should feel okay to talk to Central. They should not, like some came up, they were scared about their job. That's not okay. So I've asked 3 times for a survey to go out, and I'm actually not going to do it even secretly. I'm obviously not going to do it tonight. But on a personal citizen level, because I want to be a better trustee, I'm actually going to put this on Google Docs or Monkey Survey, whatever we want. So all that data will be anonymous and it won't be controlled by Central. It's going to be, I'll make it available to everybody. Anybody can see. Obviously, it's not going to be a legal binding document because anybody can log in and say they're a teacher, but I'm going to have some kind of view of what they're feeling. I mean, the questions are fairly easy. It's 14 questions, I think. One, for example, how manageable are your teaching requirements? Considering your experience, how likely are you to recommend this institution to a friend or colleague? Most of the schooling staff in this institution, do they have a unified vision? School staff treat each other with respect, and so on and so forth. I mean, very simple questions just to see how the working environment is for you guys, because I don't feel that as trustees we know. And I'll make it. Like I say, I'll put a link on my personal page and I will share it on Elko Reporting News and whatnot, because we need to know what's going on. That brings me to, and I had asked that to be on an agenda item several times, that never happened. So that brings me to another point. 2 meetings ago, I asked for goals. Why can't we have a workshop where we have goals? We need to know, I don't know where we're headed. I'm supposedly interviewing a superintendent next week. My first question as a candidate would be, where do you want me to take your district? What are we going to answer? We don't know. What are we showing our teachers? Are we here for them? Are we here for our students? It's almost like sometimes you listen to them outside of meetings because they're too scared to talk to meetings. Students and teachers are an afterthought in our district. Why? Like I said, obviously I'm not going to get answers today, but I would like to know why. I asked 10 days ago, and I get, and I'll get to the second part of this. EPSL, emergency paid sick leave. I asked for numbers, what was covered last year? I get it, some people were sick, that's fine. I asked, well, why don't we still make it a talking point at a meeting? So the teachers who start in 20 days, they might get excluded. What are we supposed to do? How are they supposed to know what to expect this year? I would have voted for it, even if it cost us money. We didn't last time. The feds covered the first round, we covered the second round. Even if we don't have the exact numbers of how much it costs us, we can more or less know. I mean, it's basically the sub and their salary. It's twice the sub.
You saw that in the report Friday.
But I don't know why it wasn't an agenda meeting. I mean, shoot, the reopening plan was, we had to fight tooth and nail just to get it on the agenda. So I don't know why we're being censored and why things that are important to us that we're not allowed to talk about outside, why can't we put it on the agenda? My last point, and well, actually I have two more. One, I'll start with something a little more positive because it's not just a 1 hour gig every 2 weeks where we come here and we try to beat a 14-minute meeting. I lost a lot of sleep before Emergency Directive 48 came because I had visions of August 30th, half the parents on one side, half the teachers on the other because we're telling them they have to police mask and the kids are stuck in the middle. So like Kathy Dorman was saying, we have to stop fighting. There's no, even with this new plan of opening that we're giving everybody the choice for masks, I don't want the children to be used either way. I don't want that kid to be in the class where the teacher is pushing for masks to be sanctioned. I don't want the kid who has a mask in the classroom with a teacher, I don't want them to be bullied. And obviously I'm naive thinking it's not going to happen, but I would really hope that even if we have differences on the board in the community, like I do disagree with the fact that you were heckling with those emails. We, as trustees, well, most of you were elected, I was appointed. But you were elected by both sides. We have to represent both sides and we have to respect both sides. And I think that's what's being lost in this community, is just because I disagree or agree doesn't make me a bad person. And especially if you put my child in the middle. I have a household, I have 2 dogs, one wants mask, one doesn't. So as a parent already, I have a dilemma. So just August 30th, the teachers are going to be super stressed. The kids are not looking forward to it. The parents are stressed. The bus drivers are going to be stressed. Let's just try to make that day go great. Let's almost make it a celebration. Kind of last year when they were doing the graduations with the red carpet and the kids loved it. I think it was Sage or one of the middle schools in Spring Creek did that. Why don't we try to do that for these schools? So that was my last positive. My other one is I'm a little concerned because I've talked to several teachers. They don't know what's going on. So once again, I don't understand as a business owner, we've had fires, pandemics. My staff has always known where we're headed. When I was 10 years old, I was taught to make the little, I don't know what it's called in English, the little charts where you have one question, a yes and a no, so on, and yes and a no, yes and a no, yes and a no. So we have the staff, we could figure out what we were going to do if Directive 48 didn't show up, if Directive 47 did stay. We knew what we could do. Teachers don't know if they're going to do the Google Meets. They don't know if they have to do dual schools. They don't know if they have to set up for virtual. And I'm sure they will, but they just need to know. I'm not understanding why we can't communicate that with our teachers. They have what, 20 more days to figure out what's going to happen. Southside, apparently, they changed keys and their keys wouldn't work. And this is coming from teachers. So that's why I'm worried as a trustee what to expect from this year, because apparently we have no clue. And we're putting the teachers in a position of defensiveness instead of trying to make them work correctly. We're backing them in the corner. So what's going to happen? Well, they're going to lash out and they're not going to be happy. So we have 20 days to figure out what's going to happen, kind of like pushing this agenda back to another meeting. Let's figure out what's going to happen. Apparently we had no problem appointing all the directors, but the teachers have no clue what they're going to do on the 30th. That's unacceptable to me. And I think that's it.
Okay. Other items from board members?
I just, real quick, I don't know if you guys can still hear me because my internet
Yes.
connection is going south. But I just wanted to say that I really appreciate all the people that came tonight to this meeting. I know it's hard for parents to leave their kids at home and come to these meetings. I really want to,
There it went.
it's really nice to see. I hope you continue to do so, even if hopefully all this nonsense ever goes away. So.
Okay. Other items? All right, moving on. Item 6.01, approval of accounts payable for possible actions. We have got,
Whole bunch. Huh?
we're gonna have to split those up. FY, I guess we'll just, let's see.
Can we
Mr.
do
Chairman?
all but two of those?
I will be
Yes,
disclosing that I have a family member who works for Wells Rural Electric, so I will be abstaining from voting on the Wells Rural Electric. Oh, hold on, my agenda just went funny. Accounts payable, but I move to approve all other accounts payable.
Second.
okay. It's been moved by Teresa, seconded by Brian.
And I'll be, do I abstain here?
And you'll be
You have
abstaining.
to abstain here, yeah.
Yeah,
So I'll be abstaining from the Gallagher Ford because I am an employee of them.
okay. So the Wells Rural Electric and Gallagher Ford will be the motion. So all those in favor?
Mr. Chairman, I also need to abstain from the payable board member reimbursement for mileage.
Okay. In order to do this, Candace, if you vote on the first motion and then abstain on the second motion, we can get that, I think. All
Okay.
right, so all those in favor of the accounts payable, with the exception of Gallagher Ford and Wells Rural Electric, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. Those are approved. And now going back for the accounts payable to Candace.
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved by Ira, seconded by Luke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Chair votes aye. And I think we have all the accounts payable paid. Correct? I think with
Jim, I
all of
believe
these.
In the first motion, you said with the exception of Gallagher Ford and Wells Rural Electric,
Yep.
we need to approve those.
Okay.
I move to approve the Gallagher Ford accounts payable on the Wells Rural.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Luke, seconded by Ira. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. And chair votes aye, and they're paid. All right, moving on to item 7.01, input from public. This is a period devoted to comments by the general public, if any, and discussion of those comments. In the interest of privacy and due process, public is requested to not raise personnel issues except in the legally noticed closed personnel session of the board. Comments are limited to 3 consecutive minutes. Speaker's time may not be reserved, divided, apportioned, or deferred. No action may be taken upon a matter raised until this item of the agenda, until a matter itself has been included specifically on an agenda and an item upon which action will be taken. This is non-action item. Any public comment? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward over to the podium. State your name.
We're a huge. So we love our sports. I have 2 boys on varsity. They play every sport. We have a daughter that does cheerleading. We've coached. We're involved in Little League coaching. So this is a really hard stance for me to take. But if you go into the Las Vegas news and you start looking up comments that are made by our governor, by our health department, NIAA, within the next 3 months, there will be a movement that vaccines are going to be mandatory. So you as a board in Elko County are going to have some choices to make. We have 2 choices. Yes, I want my kids to play sports. Absolutely. Do I want to tell my senior that potentially wants to go off to college and play sports that's lived and breathed football his entire life that he can't take those vaccines? As a board, you guys are going to have to make very tough decisions in the next couple weeks to probably a month, because that is coming. As soon as that vaccine is mandated, you guys are going to be pushed to follow it. So my suggestion, and I've reached out to coaches, teachers, parents, and I can't say I speak for everybody, but I think we need to reach out to many other districts close to us, Humboldt, Lander. Many years ago when I went to Spring Creek High School, we played Buell, Idaho, we played Emmett. We always travel across Idaho lines for wrestling, and we need to start looking at some other options in case there's a point where we have to put our foot down and stand up to the dictatorship that's coming from NIAA, because they're not going to stand up to CISLAC. They're going to keep following the mandates just like they always have. And at what point do we say no? So right now it's testing. Thursday, they all test so we can go to Battle Mountain, where all of those parents and all of our husbands here all work together at the mines, but yet they have to be tested. So then what happens if all of those rapid tests comes back? You guys are shut down before you even started because you left number 9 in the agenda item. There's coaches that agree with me. There's parents that agree with me. There's coaches that disagree, and there's parents that disagree. Do not put it back on the coaches, because there is an item that I found. I'll email it to you guys that says, if the coach defies the order, it comes back on the coach. Do not put that on our coaches or our athletic directors. You guys are elected to make a stand for our schools, and you have 2 choices. Stand up to CISLAC and NIAA, or keep doing what we're doing, but make a choice. Don't keep doing this back and forth stuff. It's not fair to anybody. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a housekeeping thing, but that's, I don't know if
That-
that's talked yet.
Yeah, if you've already spoke once, let other people have the opportunity first, please.
Hi, I'm Angela Carl. I have 2 students in Carlin Combined Schools. We don't travel outside of, small areas very often. I mean, it's very rare for Carlin to get any bigger school than anywhere, really. But making healthy children test for a virus that has a 99+% survival rate for people who actually catch it is ridiculous. They are healthy. There's no need for testing healthy people. We do not want to be parts of medical experimentation. There's no control group left for the Pfizer Moderna vaccine. They ruined that and gave them the vaccine anyway, even though they were part of a control group. There's no proof that there's even anything because their test doesn't work. So why are we going to penalize our children? Why should we stand? Who is the NIAA? Who are they to tell me how my children are supposed to be raised? And you don't know what kind of health effects are going to come from this. And a mandatory vaccine, if that's coming, it's not even properly tested. They won't test this stuff on the military. Why are we testing our children? Mandates are not law. It's not the law, it's a mandate. It's a dictator's opinion. And he's stupid at that. Where did he go to school? Did he even graduate properly? He's not a doctor, and neither are you guys. Do not test my children. Do not force a vaccine. Do not make it mandatory. It's ridiculous. We're all educated adults. We do our own research. People may disagree, but it doesn't matter. My children matter. Their children matter. Our voices matter. Forcing a vaccine, forcing a test on healthy people is stupid, and it's ridiculous. And I don't think it should be a part of any reopening thing. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Other comments?
Can I just go fast? I don't really have anything to say because I did everything.
I'm a teacher here in Elko County School District and have been for, I don't know, 18 years, possibly. I've never met one of you. How come? Why? All I have to say is this. Luke, you made a comment that you're not allowed to talk to us. When I was a teacher in Winnemucca, for my first few years, I would be teaching a lesson and all of a sudden I'd look over and there would be school board members sitting in my classroom listening to me. I loved it. I loved it. They were involved. I have not met one of you. I've passed you on the streets, but you can't even say hello because you don't know who I am. And as far as we are afraid, teachers are the most cowardly profession you will ever meet. I'm talking to Paul White down in Reno every day. He wants me to come down on the 22nd to speak because they can't get one teacher to speak up. And you know why? Because we will be black labeled, won't we, Mr. Smith? We will be blackballed. If I go and try to step up and maybe apply somewhere else or transfer, it isn't going to happen because Vera's a troublemaker. This is what happens if we speak openly. It is a known fact. I talk to Joey Gilbert on a regular basis. He talks to teachers all the time. His big push is because of the school system. Washoe County has gagged teachers with their new policies, gagged them. Do you know if they get caught by another person speaking against a board member? If I were to say something like, boy, that Gerber sure gets on my nerves, I think he needs to go, that teacher can be terminated. Really? So how come I've never met any of you and how come you've never come and seen any of us ever? Do you ever get to answer or do you just look at us like that? I'm just curious because I haven't heard an answer yet when somebody asks a question. And is that a policy thing? Because this is my first meeting. So I'm just curious.
We're not allowed to interact with the public because then there's a query issue.
Because it's a what?
There's a query issue with the board. It's
not
discussion point.
agendized
Oh, dear God.
for a public meeting, open meeting.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're not ever allowed to interact personally or anything?
I've access in public comment.
No.
On public comment.
Oh, so what's the point of me commenting? Will I ever get an answer? Can you text me, email me secretly? I'm not being a smart ass. I'm serious. I want to know because if I'm going to publicly comment, then when am I ever going to get an answer to my comments or my questions? That's all I'm saying.
Right.
I want to say tonight, though, on a positive note, I appreciate you guys listening and I appreciate what you are putting into that because I was on the reopening committee. And with that being said, I am really, really worried if students come to school because I saw this last year a lot and they choose not to wear a mask, there will be teachers that will make them feel bad. This has got to be addressed. All right. I had many, many students come to me last year and say, Mrs. D, such and such told me that my mask isn't good enough, or Mrs. D, it fell down under my nose for just a second and she got really mean with me. And I know it's true. The kid is not lying. Okay. I also wanted to talk about the nurses a little bit. Y'all need to know what's going on in our schools. You don't know what's going on in our schools. We had a child last year call in, very good family. Okay. These people are not liars. They are not dishonest. This is a good family, great students. Called in because the daughter overslept. Mom says, we're going to go ahead and just stay home because we overslept this morning. She had to stay out of school for 10 days because fatigue was a symptom. That's stupid. That is stupid. And y'all want to know why the community is disgruntled? You want to know why we have negative feelings? That's not common sense, you guys. Now, with that being said, I'm also going to put this out. I don't think this is a political war anymore. This is a spiritual war. And today I've listened to a lot of coaches. I've listened to lawyers. I've listened to doctors. And I'm telling you, we're in a spiritual war. So I don't know how you all believe, but I believe. I'm a Christian. And if you think as a Christian that I can do what I know is wrong to my students or to anyone else, you've got another thing coming. I won't, okay? Because God is my priority. And I'm going to put him ahead of anything else. And I want to be loyal to the school district. Y'all have given me a good job. I love my job. But I'm not going to put God behind anything else. And I want you all to think about where your loyalties lie to your God. Just saying. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to interject for a moment. Just so that the public does know that they are free to contact any one of us through email. Our emails are all on the website. If you go to board docs or to the Board of Trustees, and I try to answer every single email I receive.
Okay. Is there any other comments? Okay.
I think Kathy wanted to finish. Okay.
Oh,
April Crooks. So remember I mentioned earlier that mandates aren't law and we need to do research and listen and look for the Nevada revised statutes, laws that are on the books. You spoke about the NRS open meeting laws, right? Well, according to CISLAC's directive, if a school-wide outbreak of COVID is identified by the applicable local health authority in any school, and then it goes on from there. Remember we were talking earlier, you guys were discussing what an outbreak was? Well, let me tell you, it took me less than 2 minutes to find this in the Nevada revised statutes. And it says nothing about what a local health authority officer says. An outbreak, according to NAC 44.1A.130, outbreak defined NRS 441A.120. Outbreak means the occurrence of cases in a community, geographic region, or particular population at a rate in excess of that which is normally expected in that community, geographic region, or particular population. We know we've had way more flu cases in past years and suddenly they dropped. Why was that never considered an outbreak? And now CISLAC is violating Nevada revised statutes by saying we have to abide what the local health authority says. Sorry, this is what I'm saying, the type of work that has to be done to fight against these illegal mandates. Thank you.
I'm not a big public speaker. My name's Kenny Kelly. You guys heard my wife earlier. I was sitting at home watching the meeting. I've been watching you guys for over a year. And I appreciate some of the new members and some of you on here, but it seems like to me, every time I watch this and we have a big issue, there's no action. There's pushback, revise, revisit. And we as parents don't have time to sit here and plan on revisits. We don't have time to sit here and call our boss and say, well, I might be there next week. I don't know because the board didn't say, and I got to have somebody to watch my kids. With these sports decisions, these are the ways that they get us that are from standing up to say, well, if you don't comply, you don't get to compete. I am sorry. I have kids. I have boys that will one day play sports, but I would rather my kids sit at home or play sports with their friends than put their moral fiber in jeopardy. If this is the type of attitude that we had in 1776, we'd all be British. If this was the type of attitude that Rosa Parks dealt with indecision, there would still be racism and that kind of things. And Dr. King stood up when it wasn't right. He didn't wait for some governor to say it was okay that we stand up. And that's what America's about, is standing up for our rights, standing up for what we believe in. And it just seems like every time I watch this meeting, if something comes up I appreciate a couple of the new members that are like, no, enough's enough. Tonight we make the decision. And that's what we're here for. And that's what you guys are here for, representing us. Make the decision so we can make our decisions. I have a teacher back there and I have sat and held her and cried, and just the emotional distress that she's been put through the last 2 years with this COVID. You guys don't see that. You have teachers here saying, I don't even know you besides sitting behind this desk. I'm in management at my company, and if I did that with my employees in the field, nothing would ever get done. Nothing would ever get changed, and nobody would ever believe in me or back me for anything. But I have had employees bend over backwards, work 18, 20, 30-hour days straight because I was there. I was in the trenches. I was holding the flashlight for the guy at 3 o'clock in the morning when the telephone pole came down. I picked up a shovel and helped. Just because I was in management, I didn't sit at home because it wasn't my job or it was outside of my mandate. Luke's here asking for a simple survey for weeks. You guys should have surveys on the books that you hear from your teachers monthly, quarterly. What's going on in these districts? How can we help you guys? How can we back you guys? Instead of inaction, I hope you guys take it to heart that you hear from your teachers and they say they don't know you and they don't hear from you. Thank you.
Hi, you guys. Just a couple housekeeping things. So as a teacher, we have people come in and they observe us and they say, here's some things you can do better. So forgive my teacher tone, but here's some things you guys can do better. Please use your mics. I'm assuming we as taxpayers have paid for them. Please use them. Like I said, we've been watching them online for over a year. We can't hear half the crap you guys say. And on that note, it would be nice if we couldn't hear if there was a transcript that was available to the public. I have called the district asking many times, and I believe this may be an ADA issue. There should be a legal transcript for the hearing, hard of hearing, and deaf people in our community to know what the heck is going on with their kids. So just a couple of things. And then since no one had brought it up yet, if I'm limited to 3 minutes, so are those letters. And if I have to say my name, so do those letters. That's not okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
Anybody else?
Yeah. So now that you've heard from at least one parent, there's more back there. I think she had to leave with her kid. But now that you've heard from parents that they're mandating testing starting Thursday, what are you going to do? And they're also going to be using PCR tests that are very well known to be inaccurate and are under that class 1 recall that Rochelle mentioned. So now that you didn't want to listen earlier, you've already voted on what you're going to vote for. Now here we are with kids being tested on Thursday. You can't talk about something that's on the agenda?
That action's already taken place.
Told you.
Anybody else?
Thank you for showing us your true colors. Good.
Kathy Durham, West Wendover High School, and I will try to read fast, but pick up where I was at. So if we could stop fighting. It's no coincidence that all of a sudden everybody who never came to school board meetings came to school board meetings, had nothing to do with COVID. I'm talking about CRT. I know my history and I know how politics works. And I say this, and I apologize in advance for my intensity, but to the Democratic and Republican parties, respectively, and even to certain factions in the teachers union. And I am a proud union member. You need to take your political agendas, motivations, and aspirations and keep them out of our school board meetings. Educating Americans' children should not be a partisan issue. And quite frankly, the disruptive nature of this little game that's being played is counterproductive to the teachers, administrators, district leaders, and board members are here to do. Our school systems across this country have been in a downward spiral. I can't read fast, I'm sorry. Downward spiral for years now. And I'm glad at last people are finally asking, why is this trend happening? Well, I can tell you plainly, it's not the fault. It lies not with the teachers, the fault that lies not with the teachers, the district or the board. It's the fault of every legislative member who ever passed poorly educational policies and funding measures without fully understanding how the system works or what our schools need. The fact that our legislative and executive leaders once attended school too does not in any way, shape, or form make them an expert in what our school needs to be successful. You see, politics is the only profession in which you can have absolutely no knowledge or expertise on an issue, and you are granted the power to pass legislative measures that become the framework for which the true experts and professionals are left to work within. So parents, if you want to fight for something, start fighting at the state and federal level for better educational funding and systemic reforms. Fight for more responsive accounting of where those educational dollars go, because I can tell you there is a great deal of ill-advised spending going on. We don't need to be spending money on our schools. We need to invest in them. And if you don't know the difference between the two, invite me to your committee.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And just remember, when people show up to this forum under the banner of preserving freedom, and then they start demanding that the board take action to ban words, phrases, or discussion of ideas, that should be your first clue that freedom isn't their objective. In fact, the requests are the antithesis of freedom. Furthermore, when you find that the evils from which they declare that we need to be saved from don't exist, again, it should be even more clear that you are being duped, led astray, and possibly even lied to. I'm almost done. Teachers and all school personnel are people too. We're tired, we're stressed, we're worried, not just for our students, but our students' families. And we're concerned about our own families, just like you. All this bickering, false accusation, demonization of our schools, and what we do is taking its toll. The majority of us just want to do our jobs and be successful with our kids. Okay? But what's taking place in these board meetings is starting to take its toll on us. The politicized behaviors are driving many great teachers and administrators out of the profession. And although that may be the goal of some behind this movement, as a student and teacher of history, I can tell you attacking the institution of education in any society has never had a happy ending from a historical perspective. Be vigilant in watching over the institutions designed to keep us free. Education is one of those institutions that must be protected if we're to secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. That word means children. School is just a few weeks down the road. Our kids, parents, teachers, and communities have been, excuse my language, through hell and back, dealing with this very real impact of the virus that is destroying our health, our economy, and our sense of a unified America. Our children are looking to us to get through this crisis. It's time to stop fighting in our school board meetings over false flags and narratives. It's time to come together and start acting like a team. Everyone needs to do their job. We need to start supporting one another rather than attacking, and working together so that all of us, especially our kids, can reach their true potential. Hit me up about that committee.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Robert Crooks. I'm the leader of the Elko County Battle-Born Patriots. I have one thing to ask. Which one of you guys are elected? How many people here are elected? 2, 3, 4. I'm saying you guys don't get it together. Good luck next election cycle. And I mean it.
Anybody else? Going once?
Yes, if I may.
I'd like to thank you for your time. And in fact, like you got it, I don't know who plays the 3-minute warning. I'm gonna try and keep it inside of that, so start. First, you asked me to use a mic, sorry about that.
Thank you.
My name is Harold Wassell. I do own some property in the county, and I was up here a couple of meetings ago, and I wanted to thank all of you for your positions, because frankly, I don't want that position. Spirited debate does require some civility. You mentioned that, and I do believe we all ought to attend to that. On that regard, a couple of suggestions. If I may, I was not trying to ignore you. I was trying to look something up. In fact, I have 2 resources I'd like to hammer out right away. One of them is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. There is a quotation that I was looking for, and it's on the very beginning, tributes to the author, Supreme Court of the United States, Washington, D.C. Dear Mr. Hill, I have now had an opportunity to finish reading your Law of Success text books and wish to express my appreciation of the splendid work you have done in the organization of this philosophy. It would be helpful if politicians in the country would assimilate and apply the 17 principles upon which your lessons are based. It contains some very fine material, which every leader in every walk of life should understand. I am happy to have had the privilege of rendering you some slight measure of help in the organization of this splendid course of common sense philosophy. Sincerely yours, and then signed by Taft, former President and Chief Justice of the United States. I don't know if this is considered in our books, but in many places it's pointed out. I do respect person's belief in a faith and a divine entity. In fact, the author addresses that. I was looking fervently for that during the meeting, but pointedly, instead of instigating frustration by what we call or name our deity, it identifies universal intelligence. So I try and respect everyone's faith in that regard. The other, try and ramble less, is a reference, and this is in a textbook, from the Rights to the Astronauts, Flight in America, revised edition by Roger Bilstein, I think how you pronounce it. The reference is that when the United States entered the war in 1917, the Allies naturally expected a boost from the American personnel and production potential, and America confidently expected to meet demands and still do more than its share. On May 24, 1917, the French government requested the United States to furnish 4,500 planes for active service in time for the spring campaign in 1918. To meet this request and to meet the needs of the United States as well, the Joint Army and Navy Technical Aircraft Board called for 8,075 training planes and 12,400 service planes. This goes on as a list of production goals from a year, and I'll paraphrase, this from an industry that only a year before had produced all of 411 planes. If I may, Congress appropriated $640 million to do the job. Paragraph later, in their hectic scramble to solve these and other difficulties, the aviation industry fell prey to widespread graft and corruption as companies, managers formulated mergers, interlocking directorates, and anything else to get a share of the multi-million-dollar war contract. I think we were talking about ERISA earlier. I'll close and say thank you once again for all the heavy lifting you're going to have to do on behalf of the people behind me that fund and also provide the children that we all need to make sure that our country gets stronger. Thank you.
Yeah.
Christy Armbruster, one quick thing that I've been thinking about for months, and apparently the testing is coming up as an idea. When I was in training as a pediatrician, they told us do not test for strep if the person has a runny nose and cough. The reason being the strep test could be more false positive and not accurately positive. So we were trained not to test if the suspicion of the infection is low because the false positives will be there. The reason I bring this out is this PCR test on asymptomatic carriers is going to result in false positives. So from a medical standpoint, don't do it, please, especially don't mandate it.
Anybody else? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.